Paula or Cindy, do you guys show Janice or Kamal Pennington? Are they signed into PrimeGov yet?
Janice is, I'm sorry, Paula.
No, go ahead.
I see Janice, but not Kamal.
Okay, I don't see Janice signed in here yet.
In Zoom?
Yeah. Well, we've got a quorum. It's 1:30. Let's get started. I'm sure that they're working to join us as quickly as they can, but we can certainly begin the meeting, so I think we should do that. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the regularly scheduled meeting of the Oklahoma City Planning Commission for Thursday, May the 27th. Thank you for joining us today, for your time. A few announcements regarding the video conference meeting today before we get started. If the video conference is disconnected at any time during the meeting shall be stopped and reconvened once the audio connection is restored. If communications are unable to be restored within 30 minutes, items remaining for consideration will be continued to the next regularly scheduled Planning Commission meeting, which will be held on Thursday, June the 10th, 2021 at 1:30 p.m. That meeting is actually scheduled to be in person in City Hall. So at least as it stands today, this is our last virtual meeting through Zoom. The agenda and documents are located on okc.gov. If you're unable to access those or find them or need assistance, you can call city staff at 405-297-2623 for additional assistance in locating or accessing these documents. For anyone wishing to speak about an agenda item today or to speak under citizens to be heard, hopefully you've previously notified staff by phone or email of your desire to do that, or by signing up online. And if you have, I will certainly call on you to speak at the appropriate time. I'll also briefly ask if there are additional comments for anybody who has not signed up but wants to be heard on any item on our agenda today. And I'll do that during the agenda item. If I call on you, or I'm sorry, if you call in after your item has been heard, you can certainly stick around with us and also be heard at the end of the meeting agenda under citizens to be heard. Speakers will be limited to 5 minutes in terms of their comments. I also reserve the right to end comments early if they're repetitive, or if we have the information we need and we feel like we can move forward with our discussion as commissioners. When you're called upon, you unmute your phone. You do that with *6. On your computer, you use the space bar. If you'd like to raise your hand to be recognized, or if you want to alert me to the fact that you'd like to be heard on something, you can do that by pressing *9. Alt-Y on your computer is also the keys you use if you want to raise your hand on your computer. And I ask that all the participants keep their lines on mute until they're recognized to speak so we don't get any interference or background noise. Commission members, of course, are allowed to speak or ask questions or comment at any time during the meeting. That's why they're here. And for anyone speaking today, including commission members, just a reminder, please be sure and identify yourself when you begin to speak so people can know who's leaking. And when we switch back and forth between video views of things they're showing us on the screen and speakers, a lot of times you don't know who's speaking. So there'll be a roll call every 15 minutes if any members are not present. And as a reminder to commissioners, every commissioner has agreed to our knowledge to participate by video conference. So please keep your video on at all times. If you're going to step away at any point during the meeting, just interrupt me and let me know you're going to step away for a few minutes so that the public doesn't confuse that with a recusal. And make sure and keep your camera on otherwise. So with that, we'll call the meeting to order and get started on our agenda today. And our first item on today's agenda is the receipt of the minutes from the May 13th, 2021 meeting. And if there's no discussion on those minutes from commissioners, I'll take a motion to receive them.
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Pennington. I move to receive the minutes from previous.
There you are. I knew you'd be in.
Yeah.
I have a motion. I'll take the second on PrimeGov. That motion has been seconded by Commissioner LaForge. I have a motion and a second to receive the minutes. Please cast your votes when available. Commissioner Hinkle, how will you vote, sir?
Yes, sir, please.
Paula, I don't know of anybody else that's not able to vote on PrimeGov, so let me know if all votes have not been cast.
I'm looking for Commissioner Powers.
Mr. Chairman, my voting thing is not popping up, so I vote aye. Okay,
thank you very much. All votes should be cast. And those minutes are received. Commissioner Powers, I'll call on you to voice vote, so just let me know if you get that set up. Otherwise, I'll just keep calling on you. Next item on today's agenda are the continuance requests. We have a number of uncontested requests on today's agenda. Mr. Butler, you want to read those for us?
Yes, item 23, SPUD 1814, Request to defer to August 12th. Item 33, CE 1051, defer to June 10th. Item 34, which is case number PC 10726, defer to June 10th as well. Item 35, SPUD 1217, defer to July 8th. Item 36, SPUD 1318, defer also to July 8th. And finally, item 37, SP 550, defer to September 9th.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody who wanted to be heard on those items today? I don't see anybody with a hand up to speak. So if there's no further discussion on those items from commissioners, I'll take a motion on those continuances as read.
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Pennington. I move that the continuance request be granted as read.
Thank you very much. I'll take the second on PrimeGov. I have a second from Commissioner Coffey to approve the continuances as read. Please cast your votes. Commissioner Powers, how do you vote, ma'am?
I vote aye.
Commissioner Hinkle?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. Paul, all votes should be cast. Great, and those continuance requests are approved unanimously. Next item on the agenda are new requests, and I know we have a number of those as well. Mr. Butler, you want to read our new requests for continuance?
Yes, we have item 11, case PC 10738, request to continue to July 8th. Item 20, C7283, continue also to July 8th. And item 28, SPUD 1312, also continue to July 8th.
Did I miss, was item 23 included in the continuances, the uncontested continuances?
Yes, item 23 was uncontested.
Oh, okay, I see it. I'm so sorry. That's right, my fault. I just wrote it down under the wrong item. Okay, I'll take, if there's no discussion on those, I guess I don't have anybody with a hand raised that wants to be heard on those. So if there's no discussion from commissioners on those items, I'll take a motion on those continuances as well.
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Pennington. I move that the new continuance requests be granted as read.
Okay, I'll take the second on PrimeGov. That motion was seconded again by Commissioner LaForge. So I have a motion and a second to continue the items as read. Please cast your votes. Commissioner Powers, how will you vote?
I vote aye.
Commissioner Hinkle?
Yes, please.
Thank you. All votes should be cast.
Commissioner Pennington? Gotcha.
And those continuances are approved. Next item on the agenda today are our consent docket items. There are 5 items slated for consent today. Mr. Butler, you want to read those for us?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
there was a case that was continued that was left off that list that Mr. Butler just read. Item 29, SPUD 1317. We issued a letter to staff this week. This is an item in Ward 6 that was requested to be deferred to July the 8th.
Just 1 second. I did not have that in advance of the meeting. You say item 29
Yes, sir.
for July the 8th. So that's SPUD 1317. Is there anyone with us today that wanted to be heard on that item? It's an application to rezone 1600 and 1604 Northwest 22nd Street. And again, this is SPUD 1317, item 29 on today's agenda. I'm pausing for just a moment since this wasn't slated or read. I just want to make sure if there's anybody that's with us that wants to be heard, they have a chance. And I do not have a hand raised. So if there's no objection, particularly from Commissioner Powers on this one, since this is in her ward, I'd take a motion for a continuance on that unless there's some objection.
No objection.
And Mr. Box, you wanted that continued. Did you say July or August?
July.
July 8th?
Yeah, I think it's actually Ward 6.
Yes, I think so
Yeah.
too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
So,
I'm just reading from the agenda.
no,
so-
I know. Yeah, the agenda says 2, but I'm positive that's Ward 6.
Okay, great. So it's a word. Okay, got it. Thank you. So Commissioner Highsmith, no objection from you, sir?
Right. It was my discussion with the client that I think led to the continuance. So
Okay. Well, if there's no objection from the applicant or from you, I'll take a motion on it.
I move that we continue SPUD 1317 to the July 8th meeting.
Okay, I'll take a second on PrimeGov. That motion's been seconded by Commissioner Coffey to continue SPUD 1317 to July the 8th. Please cast your votes. Commissioner Powers, how do you vote?
My thing has popped up and I have voted yay.
Excellent. Okay, Commissioner Hinkle,
Yes, please.
All votes should be cast, and that continuance is approved. Thank you for interjecting on that, Mr. Box. So now we're ready for our consent docket. There are 5 items there. Mr. Butler, you want to read those for us?
Yes, item 1, case PC 10735, and is an application to rezone 5805 Northwest 159th Street from AA to R1. Item 2, case 7282, final plat of Still Meadows Phase 5, located south of Northwest 164th Street and east of North MacArthur Boulevard. Item 3, case 7299, final plat of Creekside Village Phase 1, and that is located south of Southwest 29th Street and east of South Check Hall Road. Item 4, case 7302, final plat of Lawson Place Commercial, located south of West Hefner Road and west of North Council Road. And lastly, item 5, case 7303, final plat of Nichols Creek Phase 3, located west of North County Line Road and south of Northwest 122nd Street.
Thank you, Mr. Butler. Is there anybody that wanted to be heard on any of those items today? These are items slated for consent. I do not have a hand raised. So if there's no further discussion from commissioners on any of those items, I'll take a motion on the consent docket as read.
I move that we approve of the consent docket as read.
I have a motion. I'll take the second on PrimeGov. That motion has been seconded by Commissioner Powers. So I have a motion and a second to approve the consent docket as read. Please cast your votes. Commissioner Hinkle?
Yes, please.
Thank you. Paul, all votes should be cast. And those items are approved. Next item on our agenda today begins items requiring separate vote and consideration. First item there is item number 6. Mr. Butler.
This is case number DA 26405, application for consideration of a lot split deed approval on property located at 13020 West Reno Avenue, 321 South Cemetery Road, and 345 South Cemetery Road. And this has also a variance to section 3.4.4.C.2B of the subdivision regulations.
Thank you very much, Mr. Butler. Is the applicant with us today?
Yes, sir. Tim Johnson here on behalf of the applicant. The case before you is here due to the fact that we do not have legal access to a public street except for an existing cross-access agreement that's been recorded and used for years to serve the personal storage in the center of the site. So that's why we're here. They have an opportunity to sell off that asset, and they'd like to be able to do it through a lot split.
Excellent. And I just want to confirm for the purpose of the record that the drive at issue, the private drive at issue, which is a little hard to see on the map, is in between the self-storage or mini storage facility there on the west side, and then the property that's east of it, the smaller tract. There's a road off of Cemetery there to the south. That's the private drive, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And that's the drive that you'll take access from and to in order to get to the self-storage project that you're separating.
Right. They currently do, and they will continue to do it. And they do have a cross-access agreement.
Got it. Understood. Commissioner Coffey, this is your ward, ma'am, unless the agenda is wrong. So I'll take your lead on these on this discussion. Commissioner Coffey, are you there?
Yes, I don't have any issues with the requested variance unless there's something from the staff. And if not, I would request approval of the requested variance.
Okay, I don't have anybody signed up to speak on this matter, but before we take the motion, let me double check. If you wanted to be heard on this item today, this is your chance, and I do not have any hands raised. So I'll take that as a sign that the answer is no. If there's no discussion from commissioners, I have a motion from Commissioner Coffey to approve the variance on the application, which is section 3.4.4.2 sub B of the subdivision regulations. I'll take the second on PrimeGov. And that motion has been seconded by Commissioner Pennington, so please cast your votes when available. And Commissioner Hinkle, how do you vote, sir?
Yes, please.
Okay. Commissioner Coffey, now I need a motion to approve the item if you'd like to do that, ma'am.
I request approval of the motion.
Okay, I have a motion to recommend approval on the lot split deed approval. Please cast your votes, or I actually need a second. We'll take a second on that via PrimeGov. And that motion's been seconded by Commissioner Powers. Now you can cast your votes when available. Commissioner Hinkle, how do you vote, sir?
Yes, please.
Thank you. All votes should be cast.
Thank you very
That
much.
item is approved. Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Item number 7, Mr. Butler.
This is case PC 10732, application of rezone 8809 and 8819 South Sunny Lane Road from SPD 514 to I-1.
Thank you very much. Is the applicant with us? This is for PC 10732. Applicant listed as Sean Matthews. I don't know if Mr. Matthews is with us. I can't.
He is.
Yep, he's raising his hand. So if you're on your computer, Mr. Matthews, you can hit the space bar and that will unmute you.
I'm here.
Wait.
Matthews, I'm here.
Yep, I can hear you. Mr. Matthews, is there anything you want us to actually give us your address if you would, and then let us know if there's what else we need to know about this application.
So it's 8819 South Sunny Lane, 8809 South Sunny Lane. It's been an existing, I guess it held big trucks outside for many years for the city. It's been a mechanic shop for 7-8 years right there. We're just basically, it's all light industrial, all down Sunny Lane, we're not doing anything out of the ordinary. The 8809 is just an acre of vacant land right next to me that we own. We're just, instead of it being zoned residential, because nobody's going to build a home right on the heart of Sunny Lane there. It's going to construct a similar building just like what we have there, just not doing anything out of the ordinary.
Got it. And I understand that the property address is 8809 and 8819. What is your address, Mr. Matthews, for the purposes of the record?
My home address?
Yes, sir.
It's 2000 Southwest 32nd Street.
Thank you very much. In Oklahoma City?
Yes, Oklahoma City 73170. More Oklahoma City, just right there on the borderline.
Got it. Commissioner Privet isn't with us today. Staff recommends approval on the item. I'll just say before I ask for comment from commissioners that the staff report does indicate that the south half of the site is currently developed with a construction company and the north half is undeveloped. So the SPUD would increase the uses allowed on the property while eliminating the provision for outdoor storage, which is allowed by SPUD 514. So I take those as being the important changes that are identified under plan conformance considerations. Any comments on this item from commissioners or concerns? Okay, I do not have anybody signed up to speak. Let me see if I've got any hands raised here, which I do not. Cindy?
Yes, sir.
There's a comment on our Q&A that I don't think pertains to the case in front of us, but might keep an eye on that.
Yes, he wants to speak on item number 10, I believe.
Okay, I'll just encourage members of the public that are with us, don't post Q&As on there. We're not going to see them. If you'll raise your hand by pressing *9 or Alt-Y on your computer during the item you wish to be heard on, we'll take your comments. It's pretty dangerous to post a Q&A there on another discussion, so please try to avoid that. If there's no further discussion on this item from commissioners or the public, I'd like another commissioner in Mr. Privet's absence to make a motion on this item.
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Hinkle. I'll move approval on PC 10732.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Hinkle. I have a motion. I just need a second on PrimeGov. So I have a motion, and that motion has been seconded by Commissioner Powers to recommend approval to City Council on PC 10732. Please cast your votes when available. Commissioner Hinkle, bit rhetorical, but how do you vote, sir?
Yes, please.
Thank you. All votes should be cast. And that application is approved. Thank you, Mr. Matthews, for your time today.
Hey, thank
Next
you,
item
sir.
on the agenda is item number 8. Mr. Butler.
This is case PC 10734, application to rezone 8005 West Hefner Road from R2, C3 and O1 to R2.
Good afternoon,
you.
David.
Oh, go ahead.
David Box, 522 Colcord Drive, here on behalf of the applicant. This is an application to really consolidate the use units. We've got a big chunk of this, almost half, it's already zoned R2. The other is portion of it C3, portion of it O1. So what our intent with this and then the next application, which is the plat, is to consolidate it all into the R2 and then of course develop it with duplexes. So it is consistent with the comprehensive plan. Staff does recommend approval. There was a letter that came in. I will tell you that my client did reach out to the individual that submitted the letter. That individual never got back with my client, but we did make the effort to do so to explain what we were attempting to do. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions and we'd ask for your approval.
Thank you, Mr. Box. I looked at this case. This falls in my ward. This has been a vacant field. I remember this field being vacant when I was in high school. Of course, it's been vacant since its existence, but this development is long overdue in my view. The area is developed with some apartments to the east, single family homes to the northwest, in a neighborhood that's actually was developed a number of decades ago. And to the south is an area where we've previously and recently approved some R2 development, in addition to the R2 development that is to the west there that's actually currently developed. So at any rate, it seems a very practical change. I don't have any objection to it. I did not receive any outreach from anyone in my ward on the item. So I'll ask, before I ask for comments from commissioners, if there's anybody who did want to be heard on this item, this would be your chance. PC 10734. I don't have any hands raised. *9 or Alt-Y. Seeing none, if there's any other comments from commissioners, I'd love to hear them. If not, I would take a motion to recommend approval to City Council on the item would be my suggestion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we recommend approval of PC 10734 to City Council.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Pennington. I'll take a second on PrimeGov. And that motion has been seconded by Commissioner Coffey. So I have a motion and a second to recommend approval to City Council on PC 10734. Please cast your votes. Commissioner Hinkle?
Yes.
Thank you. All votes should be cast.
Commissioner.
And that application is approved. Next item on the agenda is item number 9, which is a companion item. Mr. Butler?
This is case C7301, preliminary plat of Lawson Place North, located north of West Hefner Road and west of North Council Road.
Once again, David Box, 522 Colcord Drive. As you indicated, this is the companion plat. There are 5 TEs, all of which we agree to, and we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Box. I'll just point out for the purpose of the record that I'm told in the staff report that the design of the preliminary plat conforms with the subdivision regulations. It also conforms and satisfies the requirements of the R2 zoning districts and C3 zoning districts. The only question I have on this one, Mr. Box, is whether or not, just to confirm, I'm trying to win Janice and Ace's approval long-term, personally. Common area B, is there pedestrian access through that?
Brad Reed is the engineer. Brad, are you on the line?
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, pedestrian access will be located through common area B.
Okay, is that stipulated somewhere, or can we add that as a technical evaluation?
We can add that.
Okay, we'll just add that as TE number 6, and I would appreciate someone's assistance in reading that in. Unless there's other discussion on this, again, I don't have anybody signed up to speak. Nobody's raised their hands on this. This is C7301. This is your chance to be heard on that item. And seeing none, unless there's a discussion from other commissioners on this, I'd love a motion to approve the preliminary plat, subject to the addition of the technical evaluation 6.
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Powers. I will move approval of item number 9, C7301, with the addition of TE number 6, providing for pedestrian access through common area B.
Thank you very much. I have a motion. I'll take the second on Prime Gov.
We're happy to be able to put you in a position of gaining favor of Commissioner Powers and that of Commissioner Highsmith.
Well, you know what? When they're right, they're right. Are we just buffering, Paula, or are we?
We
failing
were,
to take a second?
we were, I'm looking for a second.
Okay.
I don't have the option to second it. I don't know about others.
Would you like to second?
Sure.
Okay, I have a motion and a second by Commissioner Highsmith to approve the preliminary plat C-7301 with the addition of technical evaluation number 6, which requires pedestrian access be made available through common area B. Please cast your votes. Commissioner Hinkle?
Yes, please.
Okay, all votes should be cast.
Thank you.
That item is approved. Thank you, Mr. Box. Next item on the agenda today is item number 10. Mr. Butler?
Yes, item 10 is PC 10737, application rezone 740 Northwest 122nd Street from R1 and R4 to R4.
Is the applicant present? Mr. Tibbetts?
Yes, I'm here.
Hi, Mr. Tibbetts. Start out by giving us your name and address for the record, sir, and then let us know what we need to know about this application.
Michael Tibbetts, 8580 County Road 167, down in McKinney, Texas. This site is majority zoned R4. There's a stray zoning portion going through it that looks like it's maybe remnants of previous development. We're trying to consolidate the zoning to make it a more buildable site. We've got our site plan there. It kind of just forces us to push closer to the creek and doesn't allow us to have the additional parking we would need to appropriately develop it. So we're seeking your approval to consolidate the zoning to all R4.
Okay, great. Commissioner Pennington, it looks like this is your ward, sir.
I think my only question is for staff. Is there anything more in your opinion that needs to be done to mitigate any disruption for the people in those, what looks like 4 lots just south of the property? Is there anything more that we need to be aware of about that, or any concerns as far as those neighbors? I know this is straight zoning, so I guess we couldn't do that.
Right, and by code, they'll be required site-proof screening and landscape green belt adjacent to the residential.
There, staff's comfortable, then I'm comfortable, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you very much. I did have somebody who made a Q&A post on this who had evidence and intention to protest. If you want to be heard on this item, I think this makes a lot of sense at this point to do it. It's PC 10737. You can raise your hand by pressing *9 or Alt-Y on your computer.
Chair, we had that Mr. Karim Salim that signed up to speak, sent an email.
Yeah, and I'm just waiting for him to be recognized or asked to be recognized here. This is your opportunity, Mr. Salim. If you're trying to unmute your phone, it's *6. If you're on your computer, it's the space bar. Do you see him?
I don't see him anymore. As an attendee, he was an attendee.
Okay. Well, just for the purpose of the record, I will read his comment in, which was posted to the Q&A section. It says, I'm protesting the rezoning. I live in the new Chisholm Creek Village, houses near 740 122nd. Our neighborhood comprises families with people who own their homes and we'd like to keep it as such. I'm concerned that property values may be affected. I'm typing this because I'm not sure my mic will work, but I'd also like to speak if available. It appears Mr. Salim is no longer with us. Commissioner Pennington, any thoughts on that comment, or does that change your view of the application?
Am I correct that this property is directly next to existing R4 senior housing?
It is due east of this, according to our staff report.
Already the overwhelming majority of the neighborhood is adjacent to R4, and now we're just adding 4 more houses out of this entire neighborhood who will now be adjacent to R4. Is that correct?
I believe they're already adjacent to R4.
I'm sorry?
I believe they are already adjacent to the R4. There's just the one section of R1 that would add, I believe, like 1 house.
Yeah, because looking at that map that's on the screen right now, it looks like that only that narrow strip is R1. The rest of it is already R4. Is that correct? So yeah, I have no objections. I'm sorry that Mr. Salim can't join us, but if he can hear this, at least he can look at the map that's clearly on the screen that shows that only a small portion of this property that we're rezoning is R1. The rest is already R4. So
Yep.
I think we're within it's reasonable for us to move forward with this rezoning.
Okay, any objection on this from other commissioners?
This Commissioner Powers, I think I would add to that observation that, there's not going to be any access from this development into the single family residential area to the south or to the east, which is where I believe our protestant indicated he lived. So, I think it's fairly well compartmentalized from any kind of impact, and is, adjacent to C3 on the west and to Parkland. Surely it's not really Parkland, but that's what it says, to the south. So, this seems to me a wholly appropriate place for something like this to go.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Powers. Any other discussion from commissioners? Hearing none, I think we're ready for a motion. Commissioner Pennington, if you're ready to make one, sir.
Yep, I move that we recommend approval on PC 10734.
I have a motion. I'll take a second on.
I named the wrong thing, didn't I?
No, 10737.
10737. I think I said 34. Sorry.
Yeah. I'll take the second on that motion via prime code. I have a second for Commissioner Coffey. So I have a motion and a second to recommend approval to City Council on PC 10737. Please cast your votes. Commissioner Hinkle?
Yes, please.
Thank you, sir. All votes should be cast. And that application is approved. Item number 11 was continued. Item number 12 is our next item. Mr. Butler?
This is case PUD SP 1674D, application for a specific plan pursuant to approval of PUD 1674, located at 3800 Northeast 104th Street.
Applicant present? Mr. Tucker, I think I saw you earlier, sir.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
I sure can. Anything you'd like to tell us about your application?
No, sir. Just real briefly, it's in line with the other buildings that we've already built in the development. I think we've got 4 of them already, so this would be the 5th and a few more to come.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'll just note for the purposes of the record that the staff's review of the specific plan for the development indicates that the proposal is consistent with the technical requirements of PUD 1674 and the master development statement and master development plan. Commissioner Pennington, this is your ward. Any other concerns or questions from you on this item?
No concerns or questions from me. Seems pretty consistent with all the other things that we've approved in this area.
All right, and I don't have anybody signed up to speak, and I don't appear to have any hands raised. So unless there's discussion from commissioners on this, I'll take a motion from you, sir.
I move that we recommend approval of PUD SP 1674D to City Council.
We are actually approving this.
Oh, this is specific plan. Sorry. Can I move
that's all right.
this item?
It's okay. I have a motion and just need a second on PrimeGov to approve PUD SP 1674D. That motion was seconded by Commissioner Powers. So I have a motion and second to approve the specific plan for PUD SP 1674D. Please cast your votes. Commissioner Hinkle?
Yes, please.
All votes should be cast. And that application is approved.
Thank you. Y'all have a great day.
You too. Thank you, Mr. Tucker. Next item on the agenda today is item number 13.
SPUD 1315 is an application to rezone 12520 North Mustang Road from PUD 919 to SPUD 1315.
Is the applicant present?
Yes, sir. Tim Johnson here on behalf of the applicant. This is a little niche property that is behind some commercial frontage that's being developed along Northwest Highway. And it is the desire of the developer to install some duplexes here. It meets the comp plan. There's one TE from the staff, and it asks that we extend the street to the property to the east. The property to the east is owned by a church, and we have been in communication with the church, and they don't want a street dead ending in their property. They would like to have it take a driveway off of our street, and we agreed that we can do that. So I would like to strike TE number 1 and request your approval.
Oh, I see. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Commissioner Clare, this is your award, sir. Do you want to lead our discussion?
Yeah, I guess my only question was related to that TE. Was that an anticipation by staff that could future develop as additional residential, or is that to provide access to the church?
It was for future residential connection.
Okay.
Yeah, so the church takes their frontage off of Northwest Highway, and they own all the way back to where the oil storage unit is back there. And then adjacent to them on the east side is personal storage. So the church has no intention of selling the property, and they just didn't want a dead end street, giving the opportunity for people to go back there and dump stuff, things like that. So
yeah, given Tim's
they preferred a driveway.
Given Tim's explanation, we don't have any objection to deleting the TE.
Thank you, JJ. Commissioner Clare, any other comments from you, sir?
No, pretty straightforward. So I'm prepared to make a motion if there's no further discussion.
I'd like to ask one question, if that's okay. So Tim, I thought about this, and we spoke briefly about this item in a phone call. The PUD 919, which is to the south, that remains zoned commercial, right?
That's correct.
Do you know what the screening requirements were for PUD? Is that part of your client's property?
Yes.
What are the screening requirements in 919 now that we're introducing residential to it?
They have to provide site-proof screening. So historically, it would have been on the far north line if they developed that deep, but now it'll be on the south line of the duplex zone tract.
So, got it. One thing that do you know, and it's on 919, given the age of that PUD, is it just a C3 zone PUD?
Pretty much straight C3.
Yeah.
The intended uses there are a car wash would be on the east half of that frontage, and they're seeking a commercial user on the corner.
Right. And I'm just making the point for my other, my fellow commissioners on this stuff. We, put our heads through a wall trying to get people to do 150 feet of separation from a residence on a drive-through speaker or a gas station, things like that are going to create really difficult uses. Here, ironically, it's not even notated in the staff report. I know why, because there's nothing we can do about PUD 919, but we're letting the residential be introduced after the fact and sort of end round all of those protections we would normally try to provide the abutting residential user. And I just would really like to see us take a little bit different approach with applicants when they're introducing residential to something they've already zoned commercial, to require them to include that buffering within the context of what they want to do residentially, because I don't see how we continue to objectively and universally apply these, these compatibility measures across developments if we let people just bring the residential component of a development back second, as opposed to try to introduce commercial second. It just, we're kind of defeating ourselves a little bit. I'm just making those comments so maybe we can talk about it at the end of this meeting or at another time, but that's a real concern for me on applications like this. And I think we ought to be thoughtful about the way we handle those things.
I completely agree, Mr. Chairman.
I don't have anybody signed up to speak on this, so if there's not anybody that wants to be heard, then no other discussion from commissioners. I think we're ready for a motion, Commissioner Clare.
Okay. Make a motion to recommend approval of SPUD 1315, deleting TE1.
Okay, I have a motion. I'll take the second on PrimeGov. I have a second from Commissioner Coffey. So I have a motion, a second to recommend approval to City Council on SPUD 1315, striking technical evaluation number 1. Please cast your votes when available. Commissioner Hinkle?
Yes, please.
All votes have been cast, and that application is approved.
Thank you.
Item number 14, Mr. Butler.
Yes, this is SPUD 1319, application to rezone 2412 North Ollie Avenue from SPUD 788 to SPUD 1319.
Good afternoon, David Box, 522 Colcord Drive. Here on behalf of the applicant, they are also on the line with us. This is an SPUD that would add some uses to an existing building. Currently, the SPUD 788 that is on the subject site is limited to a yoga studio. My clients do not intend to have a yoga studio, so we sought to expand the uses a little bit. Primarily what they would like to do is an event space. This did have to go before the Urban Design Commission for a review. It was recommended for approval by the Urban Design Commission yesterday. Notably, we do not intend to do anything to the building, but we have retained urban design control in the event that we seek to modify the exterior of the building. And so that was viewed favorably by them. So again, we seek to add uses to the building. We believe all the uses to be appropriate. There is one TE that we agreed to. And visiting with Commissioner Powers, she would ask that we would add a TE to remove the tattoo use unit, or the tattoo and piercing studio from the SPUD, which my client has agreed to do. So we can just add that as a technical evaluation number 2. And we would ask for your approval and happy to answer any questions.
Real quickly, before I turn it over to Commissioner Powers, what use unit is that, Mr. Box?
Well, the tattoo studio would fall under convenience sales and personal services as a sub to that. And so what we would do is keep the convenience sale and personal services, because of course it allows other things that wouldn't be viewed as problematic. So we would just say convenience sales and personal services, and then in parentheses, excluding tattoo and piercing studios.
Any objection to that proposed language from staff?
Not at all.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Powers. This is your ward, ma'am. I'll let you take it from here.
Thank you. We've discussed this. I have not had any contact from anyone in the area. This is a little bit of an odd thing because it is back off 23rd Street, but this is this building is very old. It's kind of unique. It's one of those things that you hope somebody will come along and do something with so that it'll be preserved and continue to be actually used instead of just sitting vacant. When the yoga studio came by, that sounded like a good idea, but I don't have any objection to the use that is intended to be made. We talked a little bit about what they would do with their parking. There is very viable residential across the street to the north, but there's also lots and lots of places to park around here. And they reached out to the church there to the north, and they indicated that they were fine with them using their parking. So I doubt very seriously that there will be any new or additional residential development to the west. So I'm very okay with this. And unless there's somebody else who wants to be heard or anyone who has any questions, I'll move approval.
Okay, let me ask that question. This is SPUD 1319. And if you wanted to be heard on this item today, this is your opportunity. So if you'd like to raise your hand to be recognized, *9 or Alt-Y on your computer will allow you to let us know you want to be heard. And I do not have anybody, doesn't look like. So unless there's conversation needed to be had by other commissioners, I'll take your motion, Commissioner.
Mr. Chairman, just
yes,
a quick question and comment. One, on the spectator sports and entertainment, just want to be sure. And I know that these people who are living on the north side of 24th are right next to a school. I'm sure it is very busy, et cetera. But I'm assuming that this use unit would allow there to be it does say that indoor and outdoor receptions, reunions, et cetera. Are there hours that we need to set? Are we concerned about any disruption for those people who are living on the north side of the street? And then my second comment for Commissioner Powers too is just about is there a particular concern with tattoo parlors and piercing places? Because, personally, I guess I just wonder what the deal is, because if it were up to me, I'd go through every single planning case and eliminate payday loan places if we had the ability to do that. So I guess I'm just wanting to know what's the particular objection about tattoo places.
And I would absolutely positively support that idea of eliminating payday loans. I think those things are a scourge and ought to be eliminated everywhere. No, just the only objection I have is that they're busy. I don't know if you've ever seen the ones along 23rd Street, but there's people lined up out the door. This is an event center for less than 50 people. It seems to me that would somewhat limit, but you're right. I didn't give any thought at all to hours of operation. Not having been contacted by anyone who objected, it did not really strike me as necessary, but I certainly would be willing to discuss it.
To discuss an hours limitation?
Yes.
No, I think it's not necessary based upon the limitation of 50 people. I mean, certainly if we have weddings and other things, they're going to be longer than business hours. This is just off of 23rd Street, which of course has many restaurants and some bars and other activities that present themselves later than the normal business hours. So we would not, based upon the small nature of the property and the limitation of 50 people in the SPUD, I do not believe that a limitation of hours would be needed.
Well, that was kind of my thinking as well. I mean, it seems to me that the nature of the number of participants will limit the kinds of uses. I mean, it's not going to be a music event center, obviously, if it's limited to 50 people. But surely, to say that there might be limited hours of operation doesn't necessarily mean they would be 9 to 5. So, but again, I did not view that as necessary here. I may live to regret that, but.
Well, this is my own experience from the Lost Lakes.
Yes.
So I do think it's a very good point that David's bringing, that it is fewer people. So it probably is not going to generate as much noise, but just wanted to make sure that issue was brought up. So if everyone else is comfortable, then I'm comfortable too.
Yeah, I don't foresee the Insane Clown Posse having a concert here, given the following that they have and the limitation of 50 people that has been presented here.
For the benefit of the majority of the public who's wondering why in the world you just referenced the Insane Clown Posse, that's an homage to the Lost Lakes issue as well.
What is the noise ordinance ending anyway in a neighborhood like that? Is it 11 o'clock?
Not for this property would be. Once it's zoned in the PUD, it won't be.
Well, the general noise ordinance still would govern.
Yeah, but it would govern it under a commercial zoning code. So what is it?
That I don't know. It's under a commercial zoning code now. Of course, we're adding this. I have no idea.
I've dealt with this before. I feel about this like I do the case we just had when we talked about letting people backdoor in and not having to put in commercial limitations. The noise decibel ordinance, which I've worked in, anything where somebody's had outdoor stuff, residentially zoned noise levels is 55 decibels. That's what's under our code currently, and I always require that on cases like this. If I'm participating in the discussion in advance, just in terms of trying to drive discussion, and I think a reasonable hours of operation ending time, midnight or something, at least it gives the city on a long-term basis some kind of teeth to enforce it if it becomes a problem, because no one ever dreamt Lost Lakes would be a problem either. And then they started using it in such a way that it was never contemplated. I'm all in favor of it being 50 people, but that being a smaller issue. But I mean, I've had to go next door to my neighbor's house before and address a party with 12 people. So, radios are just as loud with 12 people as they are with 200 people. It's allowing an
Okay,
outdoor
Grandpa,
use.
get off my yard.
Yeah, exactly. I guess I'm the grumpy old man in the group, but I'm just saying I would probably
think midnight would be an easy, midnight's not bad.
Surely, Mr. Box, that's an easy ask.
I just don't know that it's necessary given the limited nature of the building.
That should make it easier to agree to. I mean, you're using outdoor space there. You've got, you're being allowed to have events outdoors. So,
Commissioner Powers, Commissioner Pennington, I do have somebody who's raised their hand, so I'd like to recognize them and ask if they have comments on the issue we're discussing. Candace Hillenbrand, if you can hear me, you are welcome to give us your name and address and tell us what you want us to know.
Hello everyone. I'm Candace Hillenbrand at 3821 Northwest 69th Street. I am the owner of the building, and I can tell all of the commissioners that this particular use of the building is under 50 people. I go to bed early. We do not intend to have all-nighters there because I would be the business owner responsible for it. I would rather not be limited to a midnight, just in case we had people who wanted to start say a class at 8 p.m. I've had people inquire about doing late night yoga classes, which could be a use, or doing a dance class, which could be a use. So there are other things that may go a little bit later, but I do not anticipate it being a problem because I don't want to take on that problem as a business owner.
Ms. Hillenbrand, I'll say this, while I appreciate your comments, our role is not necessarily to view this rezoning through the lens of your intended use or your assurances of the use or limits thereof. It's that by making this rezoning without putting these restrictions in place or without having this discussion about some reasonable regulations, this runs with the land. So down the road, another person who comes in who's not as conscientious as you, who has a different use in mind, can throw outdoor parties for 50 people or less anytime they want to, with no restrictions and no noise constraints. I really think this is a bad policy on our part if we allow that.
Could we, I know we've done in the past where we've, after certain hours, limited the amplified music. Could we just do that? And then they can keep their hours of operation intact. And then as long as they're not playing music outside, then they're good. Would that be okay?
I can agree to that. After midnight, amplified music.
I was giving an example. Just trying to get to a place here.
I think we're happy to do that.
Okay.
Commissioner Powers, look, this is your ward. I'll defer to your thoughts here based on everything you've heard. You've kind of heard the discussion and arguments. What's your take on this?
I think I would be comfortable with the amplified music limitation. We did that on the little outdoor patio thing beside the High-Low Club. I remember when we were coming through with concerns about the impact on neighbors. I think I would be comfortable with that. I would like to see, yes, that combined with an hour limitation. So your decibel thing is also appealing, and maybe those things can be joined. But I think I would be happy with an hour of limitation on amplified music outdoors. midnight on the weekends, 11 p.m. during the week?
Let me ask
Mr.
real quick.
Box?
Let me ask my client real quick. I see 3 dots. The weekend is defined as what? Friday.
Friday, Saturday?
Okay. Okay, so no amplified music outside after 11 p.m. Sunday through Thursday and midnight Friday and Saturday.
I think I would be okay with that.
Okay.
And I give all my fellow commissioners permission to remind me of this later if it goes wrong.
Okay, well, I don't think we have anybody else signed up. And commissioners, if there's no further discussion, Commissioner Powers, I'll let you make your motion, ma'am.
Okay, I move we recommend approval of item number 14, SPUD 1319, with the addition of a TE limiting hours of operation to limiting hours of outdoor music amplification on site Sunday through Thursday, 11 p.m., Friday and Saturday, midnight. I think that's all.
Okay, I have a motion, and I'll take a second on Prime Gov.
What about the excluding tattoos?
Oh, yes, there was a second TE added to eliminate tattoo and piercing parlors.
We would be, so your hours of operation would be your second TE?
That'd be fine, and the third
And
would
then
be,
your third would be the removal of the use of tattoo parlors from 8300.32.
tattoo and piercing, they're separate things, but yes, from the convenience sales and personal services.
Okay. Susan Randall, does that satisfy you for the purposes of preserving the record here?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Susan.
So I have a motion by Commissioner Powers and apparently a second by Commissioner Powers, Paula, which won't work. So I'm going to need a second from somebody else.
I was trying early voting there, and I think it registered as a second.
That's all right. I think we're buffering, so give us just a moment, everybody. This is technology.
I'm happy to voice second it.
Thank you, Commissioner Highsmith. That motion has been seconded. Please cast your votes when available. Commissioner Hinkle, how do you vote?
Yes, please.
Okay, all votes have been cast. And that application is approved.
Scott, you voted.
Next item is item 15. Mr. Butler.
15 is case C 7300, preliminary plat of Greystone, located west of South Pennsylvania Avenue and south of Southwest 89th Street.
Is the applicant with us?
Yes, sir. Tim Johnson with Johnson Associates. Here on behalf of the applicant. This is a piece of property we brought before you a few weeks back to rezone from O2 to R2.
Yep.
And it was approved, and so we're submitting herewith the preliminary plat. We have a public street, and then we have we created a private street with a narrow right-of-way, but a 24-foot wide paving that would match up with the street across the street. I think that was a request of Mr. Hinkle. And the reason why we did the private street is because if we put in a full 50-foot right-of-way there, we would have to extend a second water main along the public street. So being a private drive, we don't need the extra water main and all the baggage that comes with the public street. So with that, we agree with all the TEs with the exception of the second part of TE5, where TE5 says the developer will be responsible for constructing sidewalks along 89th and along all common areas / private drives. And we're okay with is we're going to take the sidewalk and put ramps across the private drive, but we do not want to have to put sidewalks on both sides of the private drive because of the right-of-way limitations. So we'd request that be amended just to strike the private drive part of that TE.
So just to be clear, Mr. Johnson, for our purposes, the developer will be responsible for constructing a sidewalk along Southwest 89th Street, period. That is the requested amendment.
And along, well, they have to be built inside too. So, which is standard. But yeah, we're going to build it along 89th, which is an additional requirement. And the other additional requirement would be across common areas and the private drive, which we don't have any common area, but we have this private drive, and we would wish to not have sidewalks on that private drive.
Well, that's what I'm trying to narrow down. I guess that's, I'm not sure we memorialized that correctly. That if you have to do an internal sidewalk on what would be, what is that, Southwest 90th Place?
Right.
Is that what you're saying? You have to do an internal sidewalk on?
We have to anyway. Yeah. So
Right,
that's a requirement.
Yeah. So we could just say you don't have common areas and you don't want to build on the private drive. So I don't know why we wouldn't just amend TE5 to say the developer would be responsible for constructing a sidewalk along Southwest 89th Street and along Southwest 90th Place, period.
I'm good with that.
Okay. Any objection to that, Commissioner Hinkle? I'm just trying to help clarify it.
No, thank you.
Okay. Okay. Well, this is your word, sir. I'll turn it over to you.
We don't have anybody signed up to speak.
I do not, and I do not have any. Wait a minute. I do have a hand raised here. That hand, it belongs to Jared Martin. Mr. Martin, you have something you want to share with us?
Yeah. So for the sub regs require the sidewalk along private drives. So I think they need a variance to the sub regs in order to not have to put that sidewalk in.
Okay. Could you give us the section for that?
Yeah. Give me just a second here. I believe it's, well, hold on. Almost had it. Sorry. It's 5.4.2. A little bit more. Point E. 0.4.
Is that a sub 4? Is it in parentheses?
Yeah, well, yeah, sure, sub 4.
Okay. So just to confirm, this is section 5.4.2.E sub 4, which is what requires sidewalks along private drives, and we would need a variance in order to eliminate that requirement from the subdivision regulations.
That's right.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Martin. I appreciate your help there.
Mm-hmm.
So Commissioner Hinkle, we can revisit the language here just to be sure that you've got that if you need to, but I think I've got that. Do you have any other questions or concerns on this item?
So we do need a variance for this?
We do need a variance. Yes, sir, we will.
Okay, so I guess first I would make a motion to move for the variance.
Okay. So you have a motion to approve the variance is what you're making to 5.4.2E sub 4?
Correct.
Perfect. I need a second on that motion, which I can take on PrimeGov. So the motion to approve the variance as read has been seconded by Commissioner Powers. Please cast your votes. Commissioner Hinkle, how do you vote?
Yes, please.
Thank you. All votes should be cast. And that variance is approved. So now we just need a motion on the item and amending TE number 5. And do you have that language, Mr. Hinkle, or do you mean to read it to you?
No, I do not have.
We just need to amend TE number 5 to read as follows. The developer will be responsible for constructing a sidewalk along Southwest 89th Street and Southwest 90th Place, period.
If no other commissioners have anything to say, then I'll make a motion to approve application C 7300 with the technical evaluation change as just read.
Perfect. And I do have a second for Commissioner Coffey, so please cast your votes when available. Commissioner Hinkle, how do you vote?
Yes, please.
Awesome. All votes should be cast. And
you
that
very much.
application is approved. Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is item 16.
This is case C7304, a final plat of Chisholm Point, located east of North Pennsylvania Avenue and north of West Hefner Road.
Okay, applicant with us?
Yes, good afternoon. Mark Grubbs, 1800 South Sarah Road, on behalf of the applicant. This is a final plat of Chisholm Point that is south of Northwest 115th Street and east of Penn, in conformance with the previously approved preliminary plat and PUD. We agree to the TEs and would ask for your approval.
Thank you, Mr. Grubbs. Good to see you make an appearance this afternoon. Commissioner Powers, this is your ward, ma'am. Do you have comments or questions on this one?
You know, I have one question. It may really be for staff. I wondered, you know, most of the heavy lifting on this was worked out for the zone through the zoning process, including, you know, the larger lots on the far east side and so forth. Why wasn't this on the consent agenda? Is there something that I'm missing here about it's in conformance that tells me, the staff report tells me, with the preliminary plat? Nothing's jumping out at me as an issue here, so I'm just curious.
It's a wonderful question, I think, Commissioner Powers.
No, not necessarily. Nothing that would have kept it off the consent docket.
Okay, all right. Okay. I don't have issues that are occurring to me with respect to this after, again, the discussions that we had through the zoning process on this property. So I will move approval.
Excellent. And you did know, Commissioner Powers, just to confirm it for the record, that it is in conformance with the subdivision regulations, which is outlined in the staff report. So I have a motion to approve the final plat for C7304. I'll take a second on PrimeGov. And that motion has been seconded by Commissioner Highsmith. Please cast your votes. Commissioner Hinkle, how do you vote, sir?
Yes, please.
Excellent. All votes should be cast, Paula. And that application is approved. Next item on the agenda today is item 17, PUD 1822. Mr. Butler.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to step away just for a moment.
Yes, ma'am.
This is an application to rezone 2350 North Sarah Road from R1 single family to PUD 1822.
Yeah, good afternoon, David Box, 522 Colcord Drive, here on behalf of the applicant. So this is an application that would allow a multifamily development at Sarah and 23rd. Through the PUD, we have modified the multifamily to reduce the density that could otherwise be permitted under the base R4 as part of a larger development that will be, you'll see in the next application, which is the plat for this. But this being the multifamily, we believe to be compatible, appropriate with the area, and an area of the city that is growing very rapidly. I am aware of no protest. There is one technical evaluation that we agree with, and happy to answer any questions.
Commissioner Clare, this is your ward, sir. Do you want to lead our discussion on this one?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good application. I visited with Mr. Box yesterday. I have no objections or concerns. So unless anyone else has anything to add, I'm ready to make a motion.
Okay, let me see if there's anybody who wants to be heard on this item. If I can get to my screen here, I'll click. This is PUD 1822. If you wish to be heard on this item today, you can raise your hand by pushing *9 or Alt-Y on your computer. And I will pause just a moment. Seeing nobody, I'll ask if there are other commissioners who have comments or questions on this one. Hearing none, unless you've got other concerns, Commissioner Clare, I think we're ready for your motion, sir.
No, okay, I'll make a motion to recommend approval of PUD 1822 with the technical evaluation.
I have a motion, and I will take a second on PrimeGov. So I have a motion and a second. There it is from Commissioner Coffey to recommend approval to City Council on PUD 1822, subject to the technical evaluation. Please cast your votes when available. Commissioner Hinkle?
Yes, please.
Excellent. All votes should be cast. Paula, hopefully Commissioner Powers. Yep, she was. Excellent. That application is approved. Next item on the agenda today is item number 18, which I believe is a companion item and requires a variance. Mr. Butler?
This is item C7305, a preliminary plat of Overholser Run revised, located south of Northwest 23rd and east of Sarah Road, and a variance to section 5.3.1.D.5 of the subdivision regulations.
Once again, David Box, 522 Colcord Drive. This is the companion plat to a portion of the item you just saw. It obviously encompasses a larger tract of land. So we do agree with all the TEs, except for we do need the variance to TE2. The variance on TE2 is relating to interconnectivity within quarter sections. I do want to point out that we have a street stub to the south. The reason that we need this variance is to the east. That is the low, and that is where our detention pond will go. And so the need for the detention pond along the east is what's driving this. I would also note that this is consistent with a previous preliminary plat on this property that granted the same variance based upon, the need to handle the detention over there. So all the sub regs are met except for that one, but we do provide connectivity to the south. We just simply can't physically do it to the east, which is why we're seeking the variance.
Understood. Thank you for that clarification. Commissioner Clare, this is yours, and he mentioned the variance. Outside of the variance, it appears that the design of the preliminary plat, according to staff report, is in conformance, and it's also in conformance with the PUD 1822 we just recommended approval on, and the R1 and R2 zoning district regulations per the staff report. Any other comments or questions on this from you, sir?
No.
Okay, I don't have anybody sign up to speak, and nobody raised their hand on the zoning, so if there's no further discussion on this one, we just need a motion on the variance first, and then handle the item.
Recommend approval, recommendation of approval for the variance to section 5.3.1.D.5 of the subdivision regulations.
Okay, I have a motion to approve the variance. And just to be clear, this would be the action of the Planning Commission would be a final action. A motion to approve the variance to section 5.3.1D.5 of the subdivision regulations, and it's been seconded by Commissioner Powers. Please cast your votes. Commissioner Hinkle?
Yes, please.
All votes should be cast. And that variance was approved. Commissioner Clare, we just need a motion on to approve the item.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, can I just make one quick comment for our attorney representing our applicant? I hope that you will tell your client, since we are seeing this right now, that all of the people who purchase these homes need to be notified that the area next to it is going to be developed in this R2 fashion that we just approved. I hope that your client is going to make sure that those people know that, and that we don't, when we're platting that property years from now, we're not faced with they told me it was always going to be vacant. Just want to go ahead and point that out.
You know, it's never my clients. It's these mystical realtors that you'll recall people complain about being told of these fields that are majestic that will always remain so.
Well, majestic fields or not, we're about to approve the plat, sounds like. So Commissioner Clare, we'll take your motion, sir.
Majestic Field sounds like a good subdivision name. I'll move approval of item C7305.
I have a motion to approve the preliminary plat to C7305. It's been seconded by Commissioner Powers. Please cast your votes. Undoubtedly, the 6 engineers on the phone, Commissioner Clare just wrote down Majestic Fields as the next neighborhood name. All votes should be cast. Commissioner Hinkle?
As long as Majestic Fields goes into Lost Lakes, I'm okay. And I vote yes.
All votes should be cast.
Thank you.
Application's approved. Next item on the agenda today is item 19. Mr. Butler?
Yeah, this is case number C7298, the final plat of Sequoia Bungalows located south of Northwest 36th Street and east of North Youngs Boulevard.
Okay, applicant present. I think I saw Mr. Landis earlier.
Yeah. Yes.
Mr. Landis, give us your name and address for the record and tell us what we need to know about this thing.
Steve Landy's, 903 East 35th Street, Shawnee, Oklahoma. Basically, it's a high-density residential bungalows or type of development. It's got a single drive down the middle, all garages access off the back of that common alley. It was approved basically just as the design shows in the PUD that was previously approved. The TEs really don't see a problem with, other than I'm confused with number 3. What we did is we provided a 30-foot drive access easement, 15 feet on either side, and it speaks of a 24-foot road. We do have a 24-foot drive. For detention purposes, we put underground storage underneath that area through a chamber system. And other than that, the comments have come back associated with water and sewer, which we have access. And other than that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Mr. Landis, forgive me for mispronouncing your name at the outset. Second, I am with you. I put a question mark next to number 3. I don't know what that means. So I'm anxious to hear from staff what they're trying to accomplish there. So Commissioner Powers, this is your ward, ma'am, so I'll let you lead our discussion.
I had sort of the same question mark on 3, but this, like the previous plat that we approved, all the heavy lifting on this case was done during the zoning process. I drive by this almost every day. I can't wait to see something on this corner besides the tiny little outbuilding that's kind of there now. I'm excited to see how this development turns out, frankly. I don't have any comments or questions. I had the same notation about why this was not on the consent agenda. I see that it is, because it's a minor subdivision, no preliminary plat was approved, and perhaps that's why. But if there's something that we don't understand about TE3, I'd like to hear it. The way this was set up through the zoning process was that, each of the buildings would take access from that center drive. So I'm just not sure exactly what's going on here.
I can probably shed a little bit of light on that. The way we were looking at it on the plat was like there were 2 15-foot easements, one on the on one side and one on the other, rather than a single drive in the middle. Depending on which way you look at the plat, it looks like there's a narrow band for one 15-foot drive easement going across 5 of the lots, and then it looks like there's a similar band going across the other 5 lots. It wasn't clear to us as staff that it was actually the area that overlapped the property lines in the middle that contained that private drive. So it appeared that it was deviating from the PUD or the SPUD and trying to do 2 access drives. That's the reason we put it in there like that. I don't know if you can see that on the plat.
So, Mr. Martin, couldn't we just amend TE3 to say the private access drive needs to measure 24 feet in width per SPUD 1252?
Yes.
I think that'd be fine, yes.
Mr. Landis, any objection to that?
None at all. The reason I actually kind of separated, I'm sorry it was confusing, and I'd be happy to all work with Jared, of course, on the final plat prior to submittal. But what we saw was that the detention and drainage could be in that center easement, but the utilities, they normally don't want them in the same as, they wanted them separated off the drainage, especially for private drainage. And that's how we tried to work that. But I'm sure we'll do a little bit more work in the long run and get that taken care of.
Excellent. Well, if we're all in agreement on the amendment of that TE3, just to include the last sentence, that would be great. Commissioner Highsmith, you have comments, sir?
Yeah, sorry, I find it hard to get a word in sometimes. I was going to say that on the 24 feet specifically, because I did hear Mr. Landis mention 30 feet, and obviously we've got an easement that's 30 feet. And, maybe this isn't at issue here at all, but I do think a 24-foot drive is definitely an improvement over a 30-foot. So if we're getting a 24-foot wide drive on Young's, that would absolutely, to me, be the better outcome. But I think that's what I'm hearing.
Well, and this is Commissioner Clare. I was just going to ask that, do we need 24 feet? That's your standard residential street section. If this is just kind of access, is there ability to go to 20?
Well, I agree. Yeah, the smaller that can be, the better.
But my concern with that is that the staff report says it's per SPUD 1252. So I'm assuming that was memorialized in the PUD.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, and that discussion was had at the time of the zoning. I think we stick with what we have.
We've designed it that way already, and I'm perfectly fine with the 24-foot drive.
Thank you, Mr. Ladies. And Commissioner Highsmith, you just jump on in and interrupt anybody anytime you want to, man. Okay, I think we're ready. I don't have anybody that signed up to speak, and there was no seemingly interest in commenting. So unless there's further discussion, Commissioner Perez, I think we're ready for your motion, including the amendment to T3.
Okay, so I want to be very clear about what the amendment to TE23 is. We're going to strike the first sentence, isn't that it?
Yes, ma'am.
And just go with the second sentence.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So if there's no other discussion that needs to be had, I'm going to move approval for item number 19C, 7298, amending TE3 to strike the first sentence and to read, the private access drive needs to measure 24 feet in width per SPUD 1252 to allow for two-way traffic.
Perfect. I have a motion. I'll take a second on PrimeGov. Motion's been seconded by Commissioner Coffey. So I have a motion and a second to approve the final plat for C-7298 amended with the amended TEs as read. Please cast your votes. Commissioner Hinkle?
Yes, please.
All votes should be cast. And that application is approved. Next item on the agenda is item number 20, which has been continued to July the 8th. So it brings us to item 21. Mr. Butler?
This is case PC 10736, application rezone 116 South Cleburne Avenue from R3 to I2.
Applicant present? Mr. White is the listed applicant. Mr. White or his representative?
This is Matthew Smith. I'm the applicant.
Hi, Mr. Smith. Give us your address for the record, please, and then tell us what we need to know about this application.
2900 Wingate Street, Suite 200, Fort Worth, Texas, 76107.
Thank you. What do we need to know?
So we have assembled this corner here. As you can see, the property to the south is I2. The property to the east is I2 as well. We submitted an application for I2, and under the direction of the Planning Commission, they would like to see it I1, so we accepted that recommendation. We are also going to be going in for the alleyway abandonment and relocation of utilities, but basically trying to make it zoning to allow our use. It's real.
Understood, Mr. Smith. So you're in agreement with amending this application to be a base zoning district of I1?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's great. Commissioner Highsmith, your chance to talk.
Yeah, I had tried to reach out. I called that number on the application for Brad White, and I apologize that I didn't get a chance to speak with you, Mr. Smith.
He's out of the country. I apologize.
Yeah, no worries. Having said that, at the same time, I didn't necessarily have any issues. I thought there was a potential with the difference between the I1 and the I2 to have a bigger conversation today, but with them accepting the TE, I don't think I have any issues unless somebody has an insight that I'm not considering.
Okay. Let me ask real quick to see if anybody has signed up to speak or wants to be heard. I don't have anybody signed up to speak, excuse me, but wants to be heard. This is PC 10736. And *9 or Alt-Y, if you're on your computer, it's Alt-Y. I don't have anybody. Commissioners, any other comments on this one? Okay, hearing none. Commissioner Highsmith, I think we're ready for your motion, sir.
All right. I am happy to make a recommendation for approval of PC 10736 to City Council.
Amending the underlying application to be a base zoning district of I1.
Yeah.
Got it. I'll take a second on that motion when somebody wants to make it via PrimeGov. Apparently we're buffering. There we go.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Powers. I have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes when available. Commissioner Hinkle?
Yes, please.
All votes have been cast. And that application is approved. Thank you very much.
Thank y'all.
Commissioner Pennington, I need to step away for just one moment.
Okay. Mr. Butler, next item is item 22.
This is SP 551, application to operate a drinking establishment, sit-down alcohol permitted bar tavern use in the C4 General Commercial District, located at 2215 Northwest 39th Street.
Is the applicant with us?
Yes.
Start out by giving us your name and address for the record and tell us what we need to know about this.
Mary Luck Newman, 4200 Frisco Bridge, Edmond, Oklahoma, 73034. This will be a new establishment in the heart of the 39th Street Revitalization District. And while there are many establishments there, this will be a unique venue in that it will be an upscale bar lounge.
Got it. Commissioner Powers, this is your ward. I'm going to let you lead our discussion. It has been a while since we've seen one of these. I'm kind of curious, just out of my own interest, as a reminder, why a special permit is required for this in C4.
Well, yeah, I can understand your curiosity. I think the way we set up our, when we changed from ABC to a different way to do these, some of them are permitted by right. Things like sit-down bars just are not. If you're going to do a bar, you've got to get a special permit, I believe. Is that correct, JJ?
Yes, we made ABC 1s and 2s are basically conditional uses now. And ABC 3s, which are taverns and clubs, were a special permit where you have little or no food service.
So is that required in C3, C4? I mean, they're required, special permits are required regardless. Is that right, JJ?
Yeah, regardless of the zoning, yes.
Got it. Okay. All right. That helps me. Just curious. Sorry. Go ahead, Commissioner Powers.
Well, but your point is well taken. The underlying zoning here is C4, something that we don't even, do anymore. It is an intense commercial district, and this particular one is well separated from, residential area to the south, and is surrounded by other commercial uses. I think it would be hard to find a place where something like this would be more appropriate. So I have not been contacted by any protestants or anyone who wanted to offer comments or to be heard. I certainly would be open to hear from if there is any member of the public who wishes to be heard, but also from other commissioners. But otherwise, I think I would be inclined to recommend approval.
Great. I do not have anybody who signed up to speak, and I don't have anybody with a hand raised at the moment. That's not true. I do have somebody with a hand raised, but I think it's on the panelist side. Oh, I'm sorry. That's you, Ms. Luck-Newman.
I'm sorry.
So I do not have anybody who's got their hand raised or who's signed up. So are there other comments or concerns on this from commissioners? If not, I'll take a motion, Commissioner Powers.
I would move approval of SP 551.
I have a motion. I'll take a second via PrimeGov to recommend approval on SP 551. And that's been seconded by Commissioner LaForge. So I have a motion and second to recommend approval to City Council on SPUD SP 551. Please cast your votes. Commissioner Hinkle?
Yes, please.
All votes should be cast. And that application is approved. Good luck, Ms. Luck-Newman, with your new business here.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Next item on the agenda is item 23, which has been continued to August the 12th, which brings us to item 24. Mr. Butler.
This is PUD 1819, application to rezone 9820 West Wilshire Boulevard from R1 to PUD 1819.
Good afternoon, David Box, 522 Colcord Drive. This is a PUD that is at the corner of Wilshire and the Turnpike. My client owns a fence company, And he went to pull a permit not knowing that the current zoning wouldn't allow that because he has several barns on there and was told that he couldn't. And so we found ourselves here. Given the recent expansion of the turnpike and the continued expansion of the Kilpatrick Turnpike, his property finds itself right there at the corner with a full interchange. So what we have done through this PUD is add a host of uses that we believe to be appropriate for the area, given the turnpike, and also appropriate given the nature of the uses surrounding it. So with that, there are no technical evaluations within this, so we would ask for your approval.
Thank you, Mr. Box. Commissioner Clare, this is in your ward, sir. Do you have comments or concerns on this one?
I do not. I'm prepared to make a motion.
Okay. I got one question for you on this, Mr. Box, just out of curiosity. Your site is 16 acres. You're going to have one sign that's 8 feet high?
Hold on a second. That's what apparently a revision that was in there. Certainly we would like more than one. His current business that he's planning to operate there would be sufficient with one. But obviously future expansion, that would create problems.
I would hate to put, I mean, the only reason I'm even bringing this up and is because with the size of that site, I don't want you to have to come back to try to get an amendment or something like that for a sign. Like that seems silly to me, to have one sign on 16 acres that is literally to say it's on the turnpike's doorstep is probably an understatement.
What if we said 2 at 12 feet and 150 square feet?
I don't think that's unreasonable by any stretch of the imagination, at least as far as I'm concerned. Commissioner Clare, I don't mean to hijack it. That's seems a very practical change to keep somebody from having to come back when they want to put more than one business on a piece of property that's 16 acres.
I don't have any objection. We just do that via adding a TE, or do we amend?
Yes, that's exactly what we do. Just add a TE that would provide for 2 signs. What did you say, Mr. Box?
2 signs at 12 feet in height and 150 square feet in area.
There you go. Any other comments or questions on this one from commissioners? If not, I don't have anybody signed up, so I think we're ready to make a motion.
I'll move approval of PUD 1819, adding TE that allows for a maximum of 2 signs, 12 foot in height and 150 square feet.
Excellent. I have a motion and a second on Prime Go, hopefully. Motion's been seconded by Commissioner Powers. So I have a motion and a second to recommend approval to City Council on PUD 18, subject to the technical evaluation as read by Commissioner Clare. Please cast your votes. Commissioner Hinkle, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner LaForge.
She got you, Rusty. All votes have been cast, and that application is approved. Thank you, Mr. Box.
Thank you.
Item 25, PUD 1820, Mr. Butler.
This is an application to rezone 10801 Old 4 Highway from I2 Moderate Industrial to PUD 1820.
David Box, 522 Colcord Drive, here on behalf of the applicant, who I believe is on with us, as well as Mark Grubbs, who is the civil engineer for the project. This is a PUD that would allow for a mobile home park, as well as some commercial development right there at the corner of Old Highway 4 and the Kilpatrick. Cindy, could you display the site plan for me, please? There we go. So we worked a fair amount with staff on this to make sure we had our language dialed in on this. It's a unique use. You don't see many of these through PUDs or otherwise. So we wanted to make sure that how my client proposed to do this was in line with the PUD. We believe it is now. There are 4 TEs, so I want to address those briefly. TE number 1, we do agree to. TE number 2, we don't agree to, and I don't think it's necessary. We talked to staff this morning. What the use of the word may, it says access to tract 1 may be through easternmost subdivision entrance. We could do that without the TE, so I don't think the TE is needed. The commercial tract will need its own independent access point, so I would prefer, out of an abundance of caution, to just delete TE number 2. TE number 3, we do agree to that, and TE number 4, we would propose to modify. This is dealing with gasoline sales and drive-through uses. What we'd propose to modify it to is, rather than 150 feet from a residential property line, is we would locate those uses 100 feet from a residential structure. Within that 100 feet, we would have a 10-foot landscape buffer with trees planted on 20-foot centers. And those are the all of the TEs. So with that, no protests that I'm aware of, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Box. Commissioner Clare, this is in your ward too, sir. It's Turnpike Day, so I'll let you take the lead on this one.
Yeah, I visited with Mr. Box yesterday and then again this morning on that TE4, and I'm in agreement with that revised language, so I don't have any issues there.
Okay, great. I don't have anybody signed up to speak on this. Is there anybody that wants to be heard on this matter today? This is PUD 1820. Seeing no one, I'll ask if other commissioners have comments or questions on this one. Hearing none, Commissioner Clare, I think we're ready for a motion if you're prepared to make it, sir.
Yeah, I just wanted to, Mr. Box, just wanted to confirm on the revised language on number 4, you said trees planted 20 feet on center?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So I'll move approval of item PUD 1820, striking TE number 2 and amending TE number 4 to read gasoline sales and drive-through uses shall be located at least 100 feet from a residential structure with a 10-foot landscape buffer and trees planted 20 feet on center.
Mr. Chair, may I real quick? I think Mark Grubbs has something he's needing to clarify real quick. I'm sorry.
You're fine, and I want to clarify your motion, Commissioner Clare. You said residential structure, that the TE said residential property line. Did you intend to make that amendment?
Yes, that was the, I believe that was the language we discussed this morning.
Okay. Correct. I just want to make sure. I just want to make sure.
This is Mark Grubbs. I just want to make clarification on TE3 that because this is this has the requirements of both MH1 and MH2 in it, that we're agreeing to the screening and buffering of the MH1, just for record purposes. They're both in there.
Staff.
That's fine.
Do we need to
make an amendment to that language to memorialize that understanding in your view, Mr. Grubbs?
Let's just make it a TE.
I just wanted it on the record.
Mr. Box, would you give us some recommended language for the TE, what would be TE5?
Well, or TE3 can just be changed to, so it says shall specify that the PUD shall be required to meet the landscape, the residential buffer and screening requirements of the RMH1 district.
Okay, not chapter 59 of RMH1.
Right, which is in chapter 59.
Understood. You're just being more specific. I'm just, okay. You got that pretty clear, Commissioner Clare?
Yes.
Why don't you restate your motion just for the purposes of ensuring the record's correct?
Okay, I'll move for recommendation of approval on PUD 1820 and the TEs as amended, striking TE2, amending TE3 to add that master design statement shall specify meet the residential buffers of the RMH1 district, and then amending TE4 to say gasoline sales and drive-through uses shall be located at least 100 feet from a residential structure and include a 10-foot landscape buffer with trees planted 20 feet on center.
Thank you very much, Mr. Clare. I'll take a second on PrimeGov. That motion has been seconded by Commissioner Powers, so please cast your votes when available. And Commissioner Hinkle, how do you vote, sir?
Yes, please.
All votes should be cast, and that application is approved. Thank you very much.
Scott, I'm going to step away for just a minute.
You bet. Thank you, Commissioner LaForge. Next item on the agenda today is item 26.
This is PUD 1821, application to rezone 8606 North I-35 Service Road from PUD 1348 to PUD 1821.
Once again, David, Box 522 Colcord Drive. Here on behalf of the applicant, the application before you is to permit an RV sales lot, Hurley RV. We believe the use to be compatible with the heavy equipment sales that exist immediately north of this. I believe Ditch Witch is north, and you have other similar type of uses along this I-35 stretch. The original PUD, for whatever, had one little sentence that made it appear that this particular use under the main broad use wasn't allowed. So it required us to come in and submit this rezoning application. We intended to keep all of the regulations that are in place via PUD 1348 in place and simply add the use. So I want to address a couple of the TEs. Cindy, if you could display first an aerial for me. There you go. So TE 1 and 2 deal with a 100-foot green belt and preserving healthy mature trees within the 100 feet. I'm not sure there is 100 feet of trees. I mean, the site is pretty much cleared. We think the number is like 50. And so what we would propose is on TE 1 and 2 to modify the 100-foot to be 50 foot so that there would be a 50-foot green belt, and within that, healthy mature trees shall be preserved. TE4 we're good with. TE3 deals with sign height. Cindy, if you could display that. There we go. So this is a survey that we had produced. The sign size that we request in the PUD is 50 feet. And at first blush, I'm sure that sounds scary to Commissioner Powers, which is why we produced this survey. The reason we produced the survey is the subject site actually sits 28 feet below I-35, so it sits in a hole. So even at the 50 feet, our sign height is only 12 foot above grade. Typically, sign height is intended to be measured from grade. So here, measured from grade from the I-35, which is of course where we intend to be visible from, we're only 12 feet above that grade. So we're hoping that based upon that, you would grant us this ability to have 50 feet. To do it at 20 feet, as staff would request, would be 8 feet below grade. And frankly, I think create an unsafe condition, given that it would be well below a driver's visual line down in that hole. So the 50 feet really is consistent, I think, with what you would expect a sign to be, perhaps even lower, based upon the elevation of this particular site. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions and would ask for your approval.
I have
Thank
a
you, Mr. Bach.
question. Since I'm the one who's scared of big signs, you know, your exhibit shows an approximate location, but your request for a larger sign, of course, is based on that difference from grade. Is there a way to measure it that way that would ensure that no matter where you place it, you're not going to be, you know, 50 feet above grade?
Yeah, I mean, the site's flat.
Okay.
I mean, so the site's flat. It just says approximate because it's not a, you know, it's not like a pin survey that this is going to be the exact spot on the earth. That's where it'll go based upon the site plan that's already developed and ready to go, assuming we get this approved. So, I mean, that is where it will be. And that's therefore where the elevations will be.
So if it were 100 feet to the south, these calculations wouldn't change?
Correct. Because of course there'll be a building there, right? So the pad is flat.
Right. Okay.
Commissioner Pennington, this is your ward, sir, so I'll let you ask any questions you have at this time.
I've already met with the applicant, and as long as Commissioner Powers is happy about signs, then I'm happy.
Okay. I don't have anybody sign up to speak on this, and I don't show a hand raised at this point. So if there's anybody who wants to be heard on PUD 1821, this would be your chance. Seeing no one, unless there's further discussion, Commissioner Pennington, we are, I think, are ready for your motion, subject to the amendments to the technical evaluations, if you'd like to make those.
I'm going to call, what are all the, let's review the amendments to make sure I'm completely clear.
Sure.
Okay.
On TEs 1 and 2, I would propose 50 rather than 100. And then I would propose to delete TE3.
Gotcha. Then I am prepared to make a motion. I move to recommend approval of PUD 1821 with the following changes to the technical evaluation. Change 100 feet of greenbelt to 50 feet of greenbelt in technical evaluation 1. Change 50 feet of mature trees to, change 100 feet of mature trees to 50 feet in TE2 and eliminate TE3.
Excellent. I have a motion. I'll take a second on Prime Gov. Thank you, Commissioner Pennington.
I don't want to throw a monkey wrench in this, but so in the staff report indicates that the signage regulations 9.7.1 just say maximum height for a freestanding pole sign. I'm choking trying to say that out loud, shall be 50 feet. I mean, can we at least insert there above grade or above? I mean, it's not grade though, is it? I mean, again, I think it's important that the notation be that we're not granting them a 50-foot sign above grade, I guess. It's that it is a, that difference in perspective that's motivating this, and that be memorialized somehow.
Well, if we take Mr. Box's statement if we take Mr. Box's statement as fact, the entire site is set. So, I mean, they can't put the sign on somebody else's site. So the entire site is flat as he indicated, which I take that testimony as factual because nobody said anything to the contrary to contradict it. Then it would ultimately end up that the sign is only going to be the same height above grade no matter where you put it. So, I mean, I think we've ensured that protection is in place. And I'm looking at a street view. It's significantly below grade. I can't measure it, but it is significantly below grade as you drive it. So
I guess grade in this case being the I-35 grade as opposed to the grade of the site.
Right, which is the where they're trying to get their visibility for the sign, of course.
Right, but I mean, in terms of the language in the MDS, that reference to I-35 is not there. So it just says grade. It could just as easily be the grade of the site that you're referencing.
Well, we will be 50 feet above grade at the site.
Exactly.
Okay. Yes, that makes sense. I'm sorry.
Not to exceed 50 foot overall height.
Yeah. So I had a motion from Commissioner Pennington that was awaiting a second. Prime Gov is not showing me anything. Paula, do we need to reset that?
Yes, give me a second.
Okay. Still buffering. Forgive us.
It's like it knows this is the last Zoom meeting.
Yes, it is. And that motion has been seconded by Commissioner Coffey. However, the motion was made by Commissioner Pennington. So I have a motion and a second to recommend approval to City Council on PUD 1821, subject to the amended technical evaluations as read by Commissioner Pennington. Please cast your votes. Commissioner Hinkle, how do you vote?
Yes, please.
Mr. Chair or the staff, I've missed most of that. I feel like I should either abstain or absent, whichever you want me to click here. I missed out on all the discussion. I apologize.
That's fine. You can just click absent on that if you want to.
Done. Thanks.
All votes should be cast. And that application is approved.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is item 27. Mr. Butler.
This is SPUD 1301, application to rezone 1045 Northwest 49th Street from SPUD 662 and SPUD 971 to SPUD 1301.
Is the applicant present? John, forgive me, Droz,
Yeah.
you were available to take your comments whenever you're ready to give it. Just start by giving us your name and address for the record, please.
John Droz, 810 South Cincinnati, Tulsa, Oklahoma, 74119. Our application is to allow TTCU to build and operate a credit union on the site. The position of the site where the building was going was already allowed by use. We are essentially here to allow the drive-through ITMs to operate on the previous portion that only allowed for parking. We have worked extensively with the neighbors and Commissioner Powers to alleviate some of their concerns with our operations, the look of the site, signage, internal site circulation. So we ask for your approval and let me know if you have any questions.
Mr. Droz, thanks for being with us. It's been a long time coming. This application has been continued a number of times. Commissioner Powers, this is your ward. I'll let you lead our discussion on it.
At some point in the future, I won't burden this particular meeting or time with a long explanation about why this probably simplest possible zoning case took as long as it did to get done. But there is kind of a cautionary tale involved in it of layering PUDs and SPUDs. There were already SPUDs that governed this site, and making sure that the protections that were afforded to the neighbors in those, as well as other concerns that came up along the way, but really became kind of time-consuming, labor-intensive. It's taken a lot of time and a lot of hours and back and forth. But ultimately, this is an application for a credit union on this corner of 49th and Western, which is a use that would have been permitted by right under the SPUD. There is a small one residential lot SPUD to the far east of this site that is included in this application that was restricted through a long process of negotiation back when to parking only. So in order for them to have their drive-throughs, we had to make some amendments. I can't say enough good things about the TTCU team. They have been congenial and patient and very, very cooperative. They've met with the neighbors. They've evinced a willingness to meet more with the neighbors. We've gone through, issue by issue, thing by thing. All of those issues are addressed, except this morning, as I was reading through this one last time, this picture you're looking at right now, you see that wall right there. We had intended to include some language that the existing masonry wall along the east property line will be preserved and maintained. And somehow we forgot to get that language in there. So I would add, and I've spoken to Cindy Owens at TTCU and gotten her confirmation on that. So I would add that as a TE to the application. But I don't know whether there's anybody who has signed up to be heard or wants to be heard on this item. I'd take a minute to see.
Sure, I'm happy to let you know. I don't have anybody that signed up and I don't have anybody with a hand raised right now, but if you wish to be heard on SPUD 1301, this would be your opportunity. You can push *9 on your phone, or you can push Alt-Y on your computer, and I'll certainly recognize you. And I don't have anybody who's done that.
I would also commend the neighbors. They've been very engaged and very sort of proactive in dealing with this item. I would move approval of this item with just that one additional TE, and the language would be the existing masonry wall along the east property line will be preserved and maintained. It'll probably go under section 7 of the track 2 portion of the MDS, which deals with landscaping and so forth. That's my motion.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second? I'll take it on Prime Go. Motion's been seconded by Commissioner Pennington. So I have a motion and a second to recommend approval to City Council on on SPUD 1301, subject to the additional technical evaluation as read by Commissioner Powers. Please cast your votes.
Commissioner Hinkle?
Yes, please.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Paula. All votes have been cast and the application is approved. Mr. Droz, good luck with this project and thanks for developing in Oklahoma City.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Next item on the agenda today is item 28, which is continued to July the 8th. Item 29 has also been continued to July the 8th, which brings us to item number 30. Mr. Butler?
This is PC 10733, application to rezone 7701 East Memorial Road from AA to RA.
Good afternoon, David Box, 522 Colcord Drive, here on behalf of the applicant. As Mr. Butler said, the application before you is for an RA development just west of Midwest Boulevard, north of Memorial. The proposal, Cindy, if you could put in the plat exhibit first. There we go. Maximum of 21 lots. The lots range from 1.5 acres to one of them gets up slightly over 2.5 acres. We believe that to be consistent and compatible with the area. Cindy, if you could go back one, please. The reason I believe that is what this exhibit shows, and then another one that I'll show you. We have 1 acre lots to the south, 1 acre lots to the east, 1.5 acre lots north and east. And finally, Cindy, if you could go to the zoning map that I sent you, that cuts it off a bit, but it still tells the same story. So you see our subject site west of Midwest Boulevard, north of Memorial. Everything you see on the screen that's yellow is, of course, RA, which is what we are seeking to get here. So this is an RA application next to RA, across the street from RA, which is across the street from RA, which is across the street from RA, which is right next to additional RA. RA is the predominant development pattern in this area for tracts that have been developed. We believe it to be appropriate. We believe 1.5 to 2.5 acre lots when you don't have sewer is the typical lot size in this area. You'll remember a case we just had a few months ago right there at Midwest Boulevard and the Turnpike, which is that one of the large areas of yellow hatched on the screen. That was an RA application that was recommended for approval by you and ultimately approved by City Council. This is just another similar development in the general area. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions and would ask for your approval.
Thank you, Mr. Box. Commissioner Pennington, this is your ward, sir, so I'll let you lead our discussion.
Thank you. I have met with the applicant about this, and I tend to share the view that it's pretty consistent with the other decisions we've made in this area. But I'd love to hear from Jeff or JJ about why exactly about their thoughts on all of that, that Mr. Box brought up. I just want to hear the rebuttal.
Yeah, this is Jeff. It's just that, well, just to kind of tick it off here, it's close to Lake Arcadia, so we're sensitive about that. You know, we've already talked about, or you're aware of what the current LUDA is. And it's within the 100-year floodplain, so that's another issue. It's got trees that are an issue. Recognize that there is some RA around it, but the Plan OKC, we just felt it wasn't consistent with Plan OKC, the densities that were put there, so that's kind of our justification for the recommendation.
Mr. Butler, from the standpoint of being concerned of it being near Lake Arcadia, do we have some basis other than a proximity that would create that concern? There's a letter in our packet that talks about something from 1996, which with all due respect is completely meaningless. Environmental reports that are 2 years old are worthless, much less, over 20. What is the basis by which the planning department would have, or the city would have, for being concerned about the proximity to Lake Arcadia? Is there an environmental standard? Is there a DEQ regulation? What do we got?
It's the same concern that we have with the riparian areas. If you don't have sufficient area, the 100-foot buffer that comes up quite a bit when you're next to a riparian area. If you don't have enough space to clean the water, then it goes into our streams and eventually ends up in places like Lake Arcadia. which are drinking water sources and recreational water sources. So no, that's coming from just kind of best practices, which are reflected in the comp plan. And, you know, just trying to be consistent with trying to give some room there and some lower density, given the character, the rural character of the area, and a little more sensitive about it just because it is close to an important water source.
So you and I have had this conversation differently, and I understand at a different time. I mean, and I understand. You know, you've helped me understand the concern about using aerobic systems on half-acre lots and the issue with spray fields when you put a 3,000-foot house and you've got a water well, and then you've got, even though it's I want to encourage two very important things, because we keep seeing these and they keep coming through with recommendations for denial, which is starting to get frustrating. We have a conflict between our zoning code and our comp plan that isn't going to be remedied on its own. Somebody's going to actually have to remedy it. And the other thing I think would really be worthwhile would be engaging with the Department of Environmental Quality to make some determinations in the city council about whether or not we need to amend our ordinances. And I think that you mentioned that you've had some discussions here. I think you need to advance those discussions. We need to light that fire and really have that discussion in a very thoughtful way, because right now we don't, you just said 100 feet from a riparian area. This is 300 feet from the lake. So that's 3 times the amount of distance that you would want from the riparian area, which is what you likened it to. Something in Plan OKC carries no environmental weight with me, 0. But what it does is it gives me concern that we don't have a good answer. We don't know what the right answer really is. And I would love it if DEQ says that half-acre lots, assuming that the spray field is a certain size, is suitable for aerobic septic systems, and the city council agrees that we should have some delineation of a certain size spray field that's dedicated, man, that would really help us. Because when we get cases like this, we can't do anything. I don't see how you could possibly deny this zoning application or recommend it for denial with all the other RA that's here. What would you have them use this property for? And don't say 5 acres, because that doesn't make any sense at all. It's not in rural low. It's not. So I'm getting more frustrated that we're doing something we shouldn't do because we don't have tools that we need to objectively sort of arbitrate these cases. We just keep getting recommendations for denial because there's no such thing as a 1 acre lot in the comp plan. That's just urban low. Anything below that, we need better tools. I really want to encourage you to take the lead in getting with somebody from city council, probably a ward like 4 that's more rural, or somebody that can really lead this discussion and try to bring an ordinance forth, whether that's in the development code or on its own, so we can resolve this. We just keep seeing these things over and over and over again, and really the motion to deny, or the recommendation to deny, is just, it's almost getting frustrating from my vantage point. So I don't know whether the commissioners feel strongly the other way or agree, but I'm just getting continually frustrated that we keep approving these. For all I know, we are creating an environmental problem. We don't have any expert telling us differently that we can rely on, and we don't have a code that allows us, in my view, to make that delineation. So
I understand the frustration, and this is one of those things where, when Plan OKC was created, the Planning Commission and the City Council at the time felt like limiting an RM 2 acres and an RL 5 acres was the best idea from a rural character preservation perspective and from an environmental perspective. We have a completely different planning commission now who doesn't feel the same way, and the council is kind of in a similar boat. And we have had study sessions in the past about the spray fields, and we, a few months ago, sent the Planning Commission a PowerPoint from previous. And to me, when you look at that diagram, it's pretty clear that there isn't enough room on a half-acre lot. Now, I know these aren't half-acre, that's a separate issue. But it is a concern. The whole half-acre thing is concerning to us. I mean, we heard just the other day in city council, somebody who lives in an area like this, it's bigger than a half an acre. And he said every time his neighbor's sprinklers come on, he goes inside because he doesn't want to get sprayed with that stuff. And, you know, I kind of wish he had come to planning commission to tell you all that, but it was, but he didn't. It was at city council. So we have concern about this, and no, we haven't done an engineering study, but that's purely because, you know, there's only so much we can do in terms of resource limitations, and we're with budget cuts and staff cuts and all of that, we just don't have the resources to do the kind of study that we would like to. Now, we did talk about it the other day. Maybe we can use some of these federal funds to fund something like this, so that we can get an environmental engineer to look at this and tell us what the deal is. But yeah, I hear you. It's something that we've been thinking about too, because there does seem to be this disconnect.
It's a big one, and I don't even know that I can let it off the hook by saying that a different planning commission had a different view. Rural low is 5 acres. Rural medium is two. Is it 2 or 2.5? 2. And then you get to urban low. So the reason that these things are recommended for denial every time is because urban low says that you're going to have, water and sewer service. So it's like automatically the comp plan says, no, that's no good. If it's less than 2, but there's not going to be water and sewer, then we can't support it. That's too rigid. There's a big enough gap there, and we're going to keep seeing this product type come through the door, that if we don't do something and we keep letting this happen, we're going to wind up with thousands of these properties instead of hundreds of these properties. And again, DEQ has said in the power, after you sent me that PowerPoint, I went and looked again, that a half-acre lot is appropriate. They're the environmental authority. So we got to have something that tells us different in order to view it different. But I feel like we can't right now. I feel like our hands are a little bit tied.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention another big reason why the rural medium and the rural low districts were limited to pretty large lots was purely out of efficiency of services. You know, if we continue down the road we're on, we're going to have a proliferation of 1 acre, half acre, 3/4 acre, 1.5 acre lots all over the rural areas of the city, which is difficult to serve. It's expensive to serve, and that's why the Planning Commission at the time said, well, let's limit that to large lots, so we don't have a ton of people out in these areas demanding fire services and police services, et cetera. And in a lot of cases, water, that with all these water lines that are serving relatively few people, but are expensive to maintain. That was a big part of the conversation. So I didn't want that to be unsaid.
Yeah. Well, I think it's worth us taking a more serious look at from a timeline standpoint, because I can't in good faith not support the application based on everything that's around it. I think that's where, I'm not going to put words in his mouth, but I think that's where Commissioner Pennington is. I've heard Chris Browning from the water department say that it is not any harder to serve. It is not any more expensive to serve the suburban areas of Oklahoma City than it is the urban areas of Oklahoma City. I've heard him say that point blank in meetings. So
yeah, he's talking about what he's talking about is a different perspective, though, because they don't put in terms of capital cost, they don't put in the water lines, but they do maintain them. So if you ask them about, well, what's the maintenance cost per household, that's a different story. It's a lot higher in these areas where you have spread out development.
Got it. So you're saying it's the public works that's installing them. That's where the cost comes from.
Well, it's the developer who's installing them. So, the cost for the installation is paid for eventually by the customer. Where the city pays for it is maintenance and replacement down the road. And the more homes you have on a the fewer homes you have on a water line, the more expensive it is per household.
Right,
And
$477 you said?
the higher the water rates have
Let's do
to go
that.
to pay for all that. Looks like Janice got unmuted.
Yeah, I'll take care of it. Keep going.
Okay. But water, water has the advantage of being able to adjust their rates. And, it just means that over time, water rates will go up, but it's not necessarily water that was the biggest concern. It takes a long time. If you have a ton of people out in these rural areas, there's just no way that police services and fire services can be as good, and it's going to be expensive. And that's from a cost perspective, it's really about services. It just is very costly to serve these areas. And so the thinking at the time was, well, let's have, we always want to have some allowance for this type of development, but we want to limit it to just a certain amount. We want to put it in the right places. So, development like this would be kind of near urban areas. It wouldn't be too far away.
But yeah, all right. Well, we've sidebarred enough. I mean, there's a lot of things wrong with the economic side of what you just said in terms of where people are going to want to build this product and live. And there's other considerations for encouraging this type of development near urban centers. I mean, that's something that we've, not ever considered and really kind of fought against, frankly. But at any rate, I'll quit hijacking it. But I just think this is something we really need to get focused on before it becomes a massive problem instead of just a major problem, which is, I think, where we're headed and where we are today. So, Commissioner Highsmith, do you have comments, man?
I guess, since we're on the topic, I'm not trying to derail it either myself, but I do think, right, I mean, this is kind of chapter 1 of the comp plan. And it's in my understanding, it's a very important chapter. We're trying to parse whether it's meaningful in this situation or not. But at some point, I do think I agree. We've got to come to an agreement as a planning commission on what that chapter means for all of our decisions. Because I'd say right now, it's not affected a single decision we've ever made. And so if we feel strongly about that chapter 1, then we should decide where the line is and where that line, becomes meaningful in our decisions, I suppose. On an item like this, I guess my trouble is I see both sides. I'm kind of in the middle, and I'm on high center a little bit about how to approach these. But at some point in the future, right, if we believe in that chapter and the concepts in that chapter that, a very intense public process determined, I mean, surely it's going to affect the decision. I just don't know when that is or where we decide that line is. And so far, I feel like it's nowhere. I feel like we haven't been able to identify how to enforce the ideas put forth in that chapter. So I guess this is me saying I don't know what to do on these items. Right? I mean, if I plant a flag, I'm going to be the lone holdout that isn't helpful.
No, you're not. For
these types of decisions.
You're not going to be the lone holdout.
I just mean I don't mean necessarily on this in particular one. I just mean as these start moving forward, I don't want to be a thorn in the side of just progress, but I'm not going to have a good way to wrap this up, I suppose. It's just throwing it out there and wanting to talk about that and put it in everybody's mind about how do we, we talk about LUDAs all the time, but we don't talk about these character of development questions and future costs. So anyway, that's all.
Well, I tell you what, I'm gonna make mention of this to at least my city council person and express my concern on it and the need that I think we need to address this because I just feel like they could equip us with the ordinance we need to make this really straightforward and easy. and to make it a lot harder to in round the, you know, the smaller lot issue that we keep facing. But maybe I'm wrong, but I'll mention it and I'll report back. How's that?
Chairman, if I may, you have identified the path, and it's the same statement that I've made, frankly, since the comp plan came out. And I think it's been 9 years now. The way to address it is through an ordinance. But if the city doesn't have an ordinance as it relates to minimum lot, and of course, this particular application is not half-acre lots. So I want to make sure that that's clear in everybody's mind. These are 1.5 to 2.5 acre. But
yeah,
on the half-acre issue, the city has the authority to go pass an ordinance to dictate what the lot size should be. Other cities.
That's my point. That's my point. Because it'd be easy to shut you down then, right? It would be easy to say, if you don't have a spray field that's a dedicated spray field that's 10,000 square feet on a half-acre lot, you can't do it. It's not allowed within the code. No such ordinance exists today, and that's the problem.
On the chapter 1 question, or the stuff that I was talking about a minute ago, I do think that, to me, part of the reason I've gone quiet on a lot of these issues is I believe that the development code update is ideally the place where we kind of start to work on that language and refine it. And I don't want to, you know, I'm sensitive to Chairman Craven's, you know, constant demand, right, that we have good footing or standing for these decisions, and right now we just don't on a lot of these concepts. I'm hopeful that, you know, out of that process we'll end up with some actual ordinance language, some teeth that gives us the ability to, you know, kind of less subjectively make decisions as a commission that we feel like is in line with you know, the concepts of that comp plan effort. So, you know, I guess it's me throwing my hands up in the air a little bit, but yeah, I think we've got to figure it out.
Yeah. Commissioner Pennington, any other comments on this one besides all the stuff we just discussed?
Just that I agree with what's been said, and it sounds like there's consensus that in addition to your conversation, Chairman Cravens, we probably do need to have some of the commissioners who have a lot of these types of areas in our wards get together and maybe talk to all of our city council members, and it might be worth some future study. And I'd love to know from those of us who are on the commission, if this has been a part of some of the discussions as we're revising the zoning code with the update as well. Because if it hasn't been, then we definitely need to make sure that we take this on in some way.
Well, we're not there yet, Commissioner Pennington. We're not anywhere near there yet.
Gotcha.
I guess, again, this is not so much about this particular thing, but since there's been so much said, I guess I feel compelled to say, you know, I think the view that we just don't have the tools we need is wrong. I think that the comp plan, you know, is pretty clear, both in its intent and for a long time in its application. You say it doesn't matter that we're a different commission, but it does. It does. For a long time, there's a very clear, you know, signal that we were going to abide by the plan, that we weren't going to allow these kinds of smaller acre developments. The 2 and the 5 were sizes that were arrived at after a great deal of debate and back and forth. They weren't mistakes. They weren't just, oh, let's throw this in there for whatever reason. I mean, there was a decision that was made, and it had a lot to do with the cost of providing services multiplied as these areas, outlying areas develop. The fact that there was a sea change on the Planning Commission, I think, gave the development community an unprecedented opportunity to kind of flip the script, go off and get a bunch of these things approved. And now suddenly they're a precedent to, oh, well, how can we deny the next one because we haven't denied these others? I don't agree with that point of view at all. If we have to go running to the city council every time we need, you know, a line call on what the plan says, then it's worthless. So I think it's pretty clear that there was a decision made about the appropriate size of these smaller acre developments. 5 was the upper end, 2 was the lower end, not half, not 1, not 1.5. So my 2 cents.
Okay, anybody else? All right, well, I think we're ready for a motion, Commissioner Pennington, if you want to make one.
Well, I will. I'm going to go ahead and move that we recommend approval of PC 10733.
I have a motion to recommend approval to City Council on PC 10733. I'll take a second on PrimeGov. Are we buffering again, Paul, or are we lacking a second?
We're lacking a second.
There we go. Motion's been seconded by Commissioner Clare. So I have a motion and a second to recommend approval to City Council on PC 10733. Please cast your votes. Commissioner Hinkle?
Yes, please.
All votes should be cast.
Commissioner
I'm
Powers?
not getting the vote screen anymore. So I vote in the affirmative. Commissioner Heisman.
Commissioner Powers?
I vote nay.
Okay, all votes should be cast. And that application is approved or recommended for approval. The next item on today's agenda is item 31, which is our comp plan amendment item.
Yes, this is a CPA number 5 for this year. It's a consideration of a map amendment to the comp plan, removing urban future from an urban low base. And that's an approximately 127 acre tract located east of Cemetery Road and north of Hefner Road. Looks like we've already got the PowerPoint pulled up.
Perfect.
So let me just walk us through this.
Commissioner Pennington, I'm going to step away for just a second in case something comes up.
So just by way of explanation, this was recommended for denial. So let me talk you through that. You can see there the location out there just west of Surrey Hills. If you go to the next slide, we can see the subject site, and you can see it's in quite a large strip of urban future. And if we go to the next slide, let's go to the maps, Cindy, please. So this one shows that it's not terribly far away from water. There's another you might recall that there's a recent approval right there at the intersection of Piedmont Road and West Hefner Road. So there will be another subdivision there with services. So this is about a half mile from that. You go to the next one. Sewer is a tougher issue. It's a little further away. So the southern part of the site, about the southern third, can be served by the sewer line that will be serving that new development I just mentioned. The northern 2/3 of the site would have to go north and be served with a new line that would run to the north and connect up to the northeast, just because it's in a different sub-basin. The fire services shown here, this is a big reason why we recommended denial, because we felt like this would be an inefficient use of the city's resources, so kind of building on the cost conversation we just had. We have a fire station, and this is within its prime service area. It's in green there. And to put development in there that is really not the density that we're looking for in urban low is not ideal from an efficiency perspective. It underutilizes our city services. And furthermore, if we go back to the sewer, the previous slide, there's a quarter section of land to the west of this, which is also designated urban future. And if this site does not put sewer in, which they're not proposing to, then the site to the west would have a hard time developing. So it has a domino impact. If they don't bring sewer, then the developer to the west is going to have a hard, perhaps impossible time bringing sewer to his. So it essentially, by making this decision and not requiring sewer, really making the decision for the property to the west as well. And so that's kind of in a nutshell why we recommended what we did. if you go to the next one, yeah, keep going, please. So just FYI, there's the zoning. It's all AA. The current land use is also undeveloped. A few small uses here and there. There is some rural residential to the southwest. And this kind of this summarizes it. It's in close proximity to a fire station, and it has close access to water, and sewer is a little further away, but still within range. It would only take one development to get sewer within a much closer and feasible range for this site. So we didn't feel like it was the right time, but its time is coming. Doesn't feel like it's too much of an ask to wait a little bit till water and sewer, sewer specifically, are more available.
Just
So if
one
you can
moment.
go back to the Luda map, please. I'll just kind of end on that, just so you can see that last slide. One slide down, please. Yeah, so that's kind of where it is. Again, that's the Luda map, so you can see the site that I mentioned to the west, which is also designated for urban future, would have a difficult time developing and an expensive time developing as urban future if this were not to get sewer service. And you can see there's urban future also to the south of this site and to the north and northwest. The areas that are designated rural low right there are that way because there's already existing development in kind of the 5 acre lot style, maybe 2 acre, but I think it's 5 acre type stuff. So with that, I will be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Butler. Commissioner Clare, this is your ward. Do you have comments on this one?
No, I mean, it's another difficult one. And I was going to ask staff if they could refresh my memory. We had a similar item, maybe, I don't know, 4, 6, 8 weeks ago that was up in Northwest Oklahoma City. That was going to basically join Piedmont. What was the outcome of that at City Council?
That was approved. That was the last day of Councilman Griner's tenure, and that was approved.
Mm-hmm.
The difference between that and this, that one had it wasn't very close to the fire station.
Right.
So it was the difference here, and the kind of the downside with quote losing this to rural development or rural style development is that it is within that prime area, the urban fire coverage. So if it does not go urban, that's kind of that is a loss from a city services perspective.
You're not getting the most bang for your buck.
Yeah, and I might mention too, there's as you well know, there is a lot of demand for single family regular just urban low lot sizes and small lot sizes. So and there's a lot of demand out here for it. We had a record-breaking year last year. We had 3,700 single family permits. Naturally, a lot of those, well, a relatively small portion, but not insignificant portion, were some rural lots. But there's just a lot of demand for single family homes that are served by water, sewer, and fire.
I'd just be interested in hearing from other commissioners. This is another tough one.
Chairman, can I chime in with a question because of my poor knowledge of geography of far northwest Oklahoma City? And I ask this almost every time. Can someone please show me where the new turnpike will be, or am I completely off base in thinking that this is anywhere close?
Yeah, there's no planned turnpike extension where this is. The turnpike is be about 3.5 miles to the east. You can see it on the map now.
Gotcha. Okay.
Mr. Chair, may I address the commission as the applicant?
You sure can.
Okay. So one of the big differences between this case and the one that Commissioner Clare just brought up is, of course, we argued in that case about fire service, and here it's bright green. We're in the go zone. So we don't disagree with the director's position on this, in that it would be better to serve this with sewer, but Mark Grubbs, the civil engineer for the project, can address this. It is not a third of the site that can serve with sewer. It's very little, if any, in the southeast corner of this property. Cindy, if you could, or it's not Cindy, I don't know who's running this, but the quarter section to the east of the subject site is actually owned by my client. That site, yeah, so the quarter section that would be at the northwest corner of Piedmont and Hefner is owned by the same applicant here, and that can serve with sewer. And so the plan is to serve that. The problem is this site, because of a ridge line that runs through it, simply cannot be served with sewer. So it is not likely, if possible, that there will ever be sewer services there. So we believe that we are achieving the maximum density that we could ever hope to achieve based upon the inability for the site to sewer.
If I might, commissioners, that conflicts with what we're told by our engineers in utilities, who say that the site can be served by going to the northeast.
Yeah, on page 9
this is Mark Grubbs.
On page 9 of the staff report, and I'd be interested to hear Mr. Grubbs' take on this, since Mr. Box, you kind of put words in his mouth there, but it says, the applicant proposes to provide private septic systems to serve the development. Sanitary sewer is available to serve the southern portion of the site from approximately 1 mile to the east. The northern portion of the site could be served with the installation of a lift station or by extending the gravity line approximately 1 mile from the northeast.
This is Mark Grubbs. So there is a small portion at the southeast corner of this property that could be served with the extension to the east. There's a progression from the east of R1 to the west. David is correct. Our client does own the 160 to the east, and that will be able to be served with the sanitary sewer there as well. If it was the desire of the commission that small portion of this property needs to go ahead and be served as the R1, then I don't think our client would object to that. But I will say this, this makes a natural progression transition to the AA with the half acres and the 1 acres, because there was an R1 at the northeast corner of Piedmont Road and Hefner Road application that was approved, and that's currently in the process being developed. The 160 to the east of us would naturally go R1, and then we're making a progression with the half acre, 1 acre lots to the 5 acres to the west. So that was a reason for that we proposed this application as we did. Again, the southeast portion, that sewer is more readily available. We're outside the limits of I'm unaware. Where is the sewer on the north side? I thought it was more than a mile.
And I know Adam, I think Adam from utilities might be in the line. Adam, if you're available and can speak to this. We unfortunately don't have it on the map. You can see that it's the dark green, and you can see that it kind of turns to the, as it goes up, there's a little bit of that kind of medium green. That's
well, this goes northwest, not northeast there.
So as we go northwest, it becomes.
No, I'm talking about the northeast of the site. You can see that green area. That's where sewer is available or nearby.
But I think what Marcus said is that we're on a ridge where that's not accessible to the subject. The only portion would be a small portion in the southeast corner of the subject that would be able to be sewered by that basin.
Well, there's 2 basins. There's a ridge line that goes through the site or near the site, and some of the site can be served, like Mr. Grubbs said, by going to the southeast to the new sewer line that's being proposed by another developer, which this site would be taking advantage of. And the other portion of the site, I'm told by utilities, would be able to be served by going to the northeast about a mile or so.
That goes to the northwest. The rest of the property goes northwest to, I'm looking at the creek and the drainage right now.
I see that Adam Burke from Utilities is on the call and he's not on mute. So I think it would be helpful to hear from him.
Adam, we can't, or if you're speaking, we can't hear you. It says you're unmuted, but we can't hear you. Unfortunately, it looks like he's got technical problems.
Yeah, this drains up to the northwest to a different tributary of Deer Creek that I don't think that there's any sewer on that's close to this property. I agree on the southeast statement. This could go to the east. Basically, that's out of the Surrey Hills area.
Commissioner Cravens, I'm going to step away for a second.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
I don't know what to do other than.
I don't either. I mean, we're essentially, we've got a disagreement about which way the topo, sheds water from the property.
Well, I mean, that's one thing that we don't get in our materials is a topo map. So
no, that'd be super helpful, wouldn't it? I don't know what to do here. It's out in your neck of the woods. I'm not totally. I will tell you, Commissioner Clare, because I watched the city council hearing on that one because I was really curious. That issue out in Piedmont was a unanimous vote in terms of its approval.
Mm-hmm.
And I was very discouraged by that because I thought that was the clearest case we had ever seen where it made no sense because it was hopping a ton of undeveloped area in order to get there.
Mm-hmm.
What I see that's a little different is I'm looking at the actual map in my little handy dandy guide, and everything to the east of this is urban low until you get to this and it stops. And so to say that this isn't like logical development progression, I think, which was kind of what Mr. Grubbs was saying is, look, this is kind of the next place before you get into more rural development. We're sort of bridging that gap. It's supported by what's shown on this comp plan, and it's supported by what's shown as what's being developed right now.
Yeah.
So I'm sort of torn on this.
Well,
especially after what happened up in Piedmont.
Yeah. I mean, I was on the fence about this one. I was leaning toward, recommendation of approval. The fire, service thing didn't bother me, and the sewer thing, I know we've kind of beat sewer to death, but as far as being on septic, that didn't really bother me out in this area. So I suppose in order to keep things moving forward, I can put a motion out there, and we can see where we land.
We're not getting comments.
Would it be helpful to continue this? We could get utilities to weigh in on. I feel bad that they have apparently technical difficulties, but
I do have someone who's got a hand raised. That's an attendee. So I'd be curious to know, I cannot see your name, forgive me, but your phone number is showing on the screen and you are not on mute. So if you'd like to share your thoughts, happy to recognize you at this time.
Yeah, this is Adam Burke in Utilities Department.
There you go, Adam.
Hey, sorry about that. The Zoom mic wasn't working.
Can you
so regarding this
for us on the issue of whether or not this property has the capacity to be served by sewer? Were you able to hear our discussion?
Yes, sir, I was.
All right, great. Tell us what the answer is.
So as mentioned before, we run into this issue on several projects that are coming in the pipeline. The southeastern third of the property is serviceable by sewer by the new extension that is going in. We do not have anything in the works for a planned extension to service the upper 2/3 portion of the property. The nearest sanitary sewer that we have is kind of north and northwest expressway. As Mr. Grubbs mentioned, it does drain northwest towards that creek that's to the site. The alternative to serve that northern 2/3 portion of the site would be a lift station, a public lift station, or waiting for a matter of time until sanitary sewer extension is available.
And is that a project that's been contemplated, funded?
And as I mentioned before, there's nothing in the works coming down that would be, gravity serviceable for that northwest or north 2/3 portion of the site. All we have is a project that's in the works for the lower 1/3 portion of the site.
And that is developer funded, is it not, Adam?
That is correct.
So this is so the developer is funding the other side, and the developer would fund an extension to the north. And what I'm concerned about is, that they mentioned that this is, there's some 5-acre development to the west of this site. Well, that is development that's being done by this property owner in an area that's supposed to be eventually urban. So, I mean, it's a problem that they've kind of, with all due respect, created for themselves. They're not, we weren't requiring that by any means. This is supposed to be urban development, and this is classic growth management, and oftentimes the developer wants to put in what's expedient at the time, but what makes the most sense from a community perspective, and even from, it's not going to, they can still develop and make money at some future point that's not very far off by developing at higher densities with water and sewer. So that's kind of what our big concern is, and that this is classic Plan OKC growth management. What it's calling for is to just it's all about the timing and the density here. That's the issue. If we just put this development on pause for a little bit, come back, work with some other developers to put in a sewer line and increase the density. That way you're not leaving the guy to the west out in the cold. He can develop at a higher density as well. That's kind of what I'll leave it at that, I guess.
Well, with all due respect, I don't think we're leaving the guy to the west in the cold. The guy to the west doesn't need our parcel, based upon what Mr. Grubb said from the topo, in order to sewer. To leave him out in the cold would contemplate bringing sewer from the east to the west. And of course, that's not how the basin flows. So we're not leaving anybody out in the cold. And
well, we don't have this. We don't have the topo in front of us. The topo, as we all know, kind of runs back and forth different ways. So it's hard to tell. That's what I was. My information was that could cause a problem to the developer to the west. We can take a look at that and closer look and see.
Well, I don't think that's fair to my client. We submitted timely applications. The comment was that we were going to leave them out, and the testimony here, I think by even the utility department, is that is inaccurate. So,
well, I guess one of the things that, as Commissioner Clare, is, if your reasoning is we can't do it, the sewer doesn't work, I guess maybe we need some information to say that rather than just saying it doesn't work. I mean, we need topo, we need some kind of exhibits showing elevations. And I know that gets into some design, but maybe we need that backup data.
How far is the sewer away? Could the utility department person tell us that?
Yeah, this is Adam Burke again. It's over a mile to the north for serving the northern 2/3 portion of the site.
Over a mile, how far is that? How far is it actually out? But to go to the northwest down the creek line, Adam, it's quite a ways.
Let me measure it out real quick.
And as said, I mean, if the statement is that we're cutting off development to the west per the southeast third, so you're calling it, then our client would agree to serve that with sewer and go R1 in that portion, because water is going to be being brought to it there. Not the intent to cut anybody off there. Don't know that we are, but this application was made as a progression. So,
I understand. If that's not the case, I'll concede that. But that was my understanding, that it would flow kind of through the corner of your side. But if that's not the case, I'll concede that. But what's supposed to happen in these kinds of situations is, the developer and the developer's agents consult the comp plan, and they look and see if what's called for is feasible. And I think until we've done that, in my opinion anyway, until the developer and their agents look at it and say, well, can we serve it by a dragging sewer to the north? Can we do that? To me, it's premature to make a decision, because the plan is calling for us to do exactly that, to evaluate each site and say, well, is it feasible? And maybe it's not feasible now, but if it's feasible in 6 months or 2 years, that's why we have a plan to manage growth and development like this.
And again, this is Adam Burke with the Utilities Department. Looking at the topography we have in GIS, which is just kind of a guide more than anything, there's probably a portion of the site to the west on Cemetery Road that could be serviced by an extension. It just depends on the future design, the extension of the wastewater to get to that point. And that's just data and information we don't have at this time. But with a lift station in that area, it could be serviced.
You don't know how far it is, Adam, down that creek line, that tributary to Deer Creek? I mean, is it all the way at Deer Creek?
Sorry, I was referring to the extension from the east.
Oh,
but the one
east,
from the the one from the north is about, I think it's a mile and a half, so about 8,000 linear feet away.
Where is that at?
Well, it depends on where the conveyance is going to connect, but it's just north of Northwest Expressway.
Yeah, it would have to go down the tributary, past Northwest Expressway. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, so, okay.
And we don't have any projects no extension projects are queued at this time.
Yeah.
I think we need to make a determination at this point, both for the benefit of the applicant and the benefit of the commission, whether we want to continue this case, or Mr. Box, if you want us to move forward with it today, we just need to know that. I think it's clear we're not going to come to some sort of to an agreed consensus about what the best path forward is and the time frame that it's going to take to do that.
Yeah,
it's pretty compelling to me that it's, there's no time frame here. There's not even a discussion. It's a long way from being funded, but I think we need to know from you what your preference would be, if you want us to continue the discussion and try to make a decision, Mr. Box, or you want us to continue it.
I'd kind of like to know where Commissioner Claire is on it, because I agree with you. The idea that it's sewer exists somewhere north and west of the site, but there's no timetable whatsoever. There's no project whatsoever. So I'd kind of like to know where Commissioner Claire is.
Well, I just, I can only reference that Piedmont one again. I don't think it really makes a difference what we do as planning commission. I think it's going to go to council, and I think it's going to be approved. We've got we got two different council members, and it was unanimous last time. So, it might be 7-2 this time, but.
Commissioner Claire, the one thing I'll say on that front, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but I just want to frame it correctly. I was very discouraged by that, but I don't think that changes our approach, which is to provide a recommendation.
Right.
And if we continually provide recommendations one way and they go another, we've done our job.
You are correct. Yes.
So, they're going to do what they want to do. I think what we're looking at, from purely looking at this comp plan amendment, is whether or not this is appropriate time to lift the urban future and, sort of allow this type of a project to go forward or not. And, you know, we've used our judgment in the past to make calls on recommendations, and, you know, sometimes the council's agreed and sometimes it hasn't, but.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's important for the council, you know, they may disagree, but it's important for them to have a recommendation from the planning commission based on all solid deliberation, you know, your interpretation of the comp plan, so that they can consider that. So, you know, I wouldn't worry about what they may or may not do. It's important that they have the rationale from this body and that recommendation. I just want to, you know, maybe this is a question for later, I don't know, but it keeps coming up that there's not, you know, there's not a current project, or there's some kind of expectation where if there's not, you know, if somebody wants to develop right now and they don't have, you know, a water or a sewer line within a proximity that is, you know, fits their cash flow at the time, or I should say it a better way, you know, the comp plan doesn't set any expectation as to, you know, well, in terms of timing. The assumption is that this urban future is close enough that it can be developed as urban within a reasonable time frame. So that judgment was was made by the Planning Commission and the City Council at the time the plan was adopted. Now, of course, that's a broad brush, and there are some areas of urban future that are closer than others. But that's the reason for the urban future, saying, hey, this land is close to our services. Services will be available in a reasonable time frame. And that might be 6 months, it might be 10 years, but that's the purpose of this urban future. So I get a little nervous when, you know, about the arguments that, well, there's no immediate availability. You know, we've got to have water and sewer within a half mile, or we should get to do whatever we want. So, you know, that if we go with that rationale, then we end up having, you know, rural style development that really inhibits and carves up our area, so that developers of actual, you know, subdivisions that are urban densities have a hard time finding locations for them. And it just makes it, the whole point of urban future was to keep that fragmentation from happening, to leave these consistent contiguous areas that can be urbanized in the future, that are close to services, or in this case, already served by fire.
And I guess I would say it would be the thing that is just blatantly ignored in that is somebody owns the property and has a certain amount of rights. And the answer that, well, you can go develop it under current zoning is not the answer, because of course it's uneconomic to develop 5-acre lots in this area. And so even though you say 6 months or 2 years, I understand that. But with the reason I think that Commissioner Craven's mentioned it's not planned and it's not funded is, I think that means that it's not going to be available, if it could ever be available, in a reasonable amount of time. And so what we have proposed is a natural progression of zoning with 6,000 square foot lots. That's what will be to our east, ½ acre, 1 acre. So I guess what I'm looking for, I guess, Commissioner Claire, what would you like to do? Would you like additional information? I mean, I obviously want this to be approved, so I'm kind of looking to you to see where your thoughts are.
Mm-hmm.
And before you speak to that, I just have to answer Mr. Box by saying the idea that you know, 5-acre lots are not you know, what you want to build, and therefore that's not an answer. That's just not the way planning works. You're saying your client's being denied any use of his land. That's not true. He can develop it. He can develop it in consistency with the plan. He can develop 5-acre lots. He doesn't want to do that. That's fine. But that doesn't mean that he's being denied any use of his land. And I don't think that's what the law is.
The law is a reasonable use of the land. I do not believe that 5-acre lots to be a reasonable use of the land. And frankly, he couldn't develop his property compatible with the plan. Considering the plan is urban reserve, the plan is dictating that we should hold it until the city determines that it's okay. There is no comp plan designation. It's a hold.
I think that we've sufficiently beat this to death. My suggestion at this point is to see where we are. I think it is fair, Commissioner Claire, and I'm not trying to put this on you, just in the sense of, do we want to continue the case to get more information? Would that be your preference, or do you want to make a motion and kind of see where everybody falls at this point?
I'm ready to just make a motion and see where everybody lands.
Well, let's do it.
So, I know in instances like this, we're supposed to rely on Plan OKC. I can't say that I disagree on the hold, with Mr. Box on the, well, we just need to hold and wait. I do think this is out there a ways, and it's, not quite ready, but I just don't know if it's right to ask them to keep holding on it. So like I said, it's a tough one. But with that, I'm going to go ahead and make a motion to approve the map amendment for CPA 2021-005.
I have a motion to approve the comp plan amendment CPA 2021-0005. I'll wait to see if that motion is seconded. Paula, please advise if we are waiting on you or we are waiting on a second.
We are waiting on the second.
Okay.
Got it.
And that motion has been seconded by Commissioner LaFord. So I have a motion and a second to approve the comp plan amendment. Please cast your votes when available. And Commissioner Hinkle, how do you vote?
Yeah.
Okay, all votes should be cast.
My computer is not showing me the voting thing, so I'll vote no.
Okay, now all votes should be cast. And 1, 2, 3, whoa. Okay. Wow. Okay, well, Mr. Box.
Mr. Chair, my computer's not showing. What was the vote?
It's 4-4, and we've got one absent member. So I think at this point we could do a motion to continue the case, to give staff and the applicant, and again, the fact that we're missing one of our commission members, we can continue it to the next meeting.
I believe it's automatically continued, isn't it?
Unless the applicant wants to, I'm kind of giving the applicant the preference here about what they would like to do.
Well, it's comp plan.
No,
oh, well, that's a good point. It's not the zoning. You're right. So it would be automatically continued then. That's right.
The question has to do with the next item.
We're going to hear it because it's on the agenda. My recommendation is going to be that we continue it to the June meeting along with this comp plan amendment, but you're the applicant, so.
Unless Asa or Kamal want to come onto the side of the green check marks.
Nice try. They've already voted.
On the zoning, I mean, of course. I guess let's just punt. We need to go to July 8th.
No, we're gonna have to go unless you don't need me there.
I need you there. You're my star, Mark.
Yeah.
You gotta have.
Then we're gonna have to go to one after July 8th.
All right.
Well, wait a minute then. Hold on a minute. Before we move on to the PUD item, if we're going to punt that item, do we want to punt the comp plan amendment for your benefit to the same agenda? Because we can do that.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so then what I need is a motion to continue the comp plan amendment until, I don't even know what meeting that is. You'll have to tell me.
August 12th.
August 12th?
Yep.
Okay.
All right, well, I'll make a motion to continue the comp plan amendment 2021-00005 to the August 12th meeting.
Thank you, Commissioner Claire. I need a second on that motion from somebody when available. It's been seconded by Commissioner Highsmith. Please cast your votes. Commissioner Powers, how do you vote?
To continue it until what date? I'm sorry.
August the 12th.
I'm good with that. Yay.
Okay. And Commissioner Hinkle?
Yes, please.
All votes should be cast. And that application has been continued until August the 12th. Next item on the agenda is PUD 1815. It's the agreement of the applicant to continue that item. Real quickly here for the benefit, I don't have anybody signed up, and it looks like we don't have anybody that wants to be heard on this. So if there's no further discussion, Commissioner Clare, I'll take a motion from you to continue PUD 1815 until the August 12th meeting.
So moved.
I have a motion. I'll take a second on PrimeGov.
We don't have the option.
Yeah, we're buffering again. Okay, that motion's been seconded by Commissioner Coffey. So please cast your votes. Commissioner Powers, how do you vote?
Yay.
Commissioner Hinkle?
Yes, please.
All votes should be cast, and that continuance is approved.
Thank you.
Mr. Butler, Adam, Mr. Grubbs, Mr. Box, let's come back on the 12th. We got 90 days here. Let's come back on the 12th with topos and great information and all the facts we were missing today, particularly from the city staff side as it relates to the application.
Can I make a request too of staff? I mean, you know, it's ironic we've spent an enormous amount of time talking about the comp plan today. And I think it's important to be noted that the comp plan is actually broken at the moment. The public cannot even access the interactive map on the comprehensive plan. And so I think it's important that the public have the ability to actually use the interactive map on the comp plan to understand what the comp plan on a particular site actually is.
Yes, David, that's available at data.okc.gov. So you and Mr. Grubbs can access it there.
I've been told by your staff that it's not, and I have to request a PDF map.
I think that information is out of date. So data.okc.gov has the interactive map, just like you're used to.
Okay, that is the last item on our agenda for separate items under consideration. The additional items left on our agenda will continue to a later meeting. So with that, we're on to additional items. There are currently no established Planning Commission committees, so we're on to Planning Commission members. Commissioner Clare?
Nothing from me.
Commissioner Powers?
No, I don't. No, not today.
Okay. Commissioner Coffey?
Nothing.
Commissioner Hinkle?
Nothing for me, sir.
Commissioner Highsmith?
No, sir.
Commissioner Pennington?
A quick comment to say this. I know this was a very long and arduous discussion over that item, but I just, as somebody that has spent most of their life in Northeast Oklahoma City, in the very urban core of this city, it makes me extremely uncomfortable to have to vote on issues that are so far out out of the urban core in Oklahoma City. And so I think this all goes back to the discussion that we had about the item that was in my ward near Lake Arcadia. I think we've got to decide as a commission, and maybe this is worth a study session, Chairman, or something, but like our strategy on sprawl needs to be something that we've agreed upon. And Commissioner Powers has had the benefit of all of her experience being on the commission. And I took to heart what she said earlier on that issue in Arcadia about the fact that, no, we have precedent. We made these decisions for a specific reason. I think that I don't completely understand all those reasons. And I also think that the comp plan should be malleable to market conditions. You know, people want to live in our city. People also want to live a little bit more further spread out thanks to COVID. And I think we ought to have a city that is amenable to that. But I also understand the cost on services. So just saying, I hope that we get a chance to really talk about these policy decisions at some point soon in the future.
I agree. I think there's a lot of policy stuff to talk about here, and I'm not I'm not taking a swipe at anybody. And when I make this comment, there's a certain practical aspect of this you have to acknowledge. This is not Sim City. Like we're not going to sit here and develop this great plan that just works perfectly. It has to be amenable to conditions. Right now, there is a huge demand for housing, which is a first world problem in Oklahoma City. And to combat sprawl, there's two parts to that. There's attractive urban development that's thoughtful, that increases density. I think we've done a wonderful job as a commission encouraging that development. We did it today by approving a large number of units in an established area. Like we've done all these things. We've really pushed hard on that. The other component to that is to discourage sprawl is establishing things, but the comp plan is not an ordinance. And when you get into these really technical issues about, the sewer and all, that's where I get uncomfortable, because if the city council had wanted to adopt an ordinance on that issue, they would have done it. And I'm curious as to why they haven't. So I'm going to go ask the question, and I'll report back to the Planning Commission in the June meeting. I'll make that a part of my report. I'll tell you what I've learned. I'll ask and I'll dig into that with some folks and see what I can find out. But I'm really curious about this. But there's no perfect world scenario. And I am just disinclined to discourage ongoing development, because believe it or not, with 621 square miles, we have a housing problem right now. We have a housing problem. So which policy issue do you want? Do you want not ideal, not dense enough development, or do you want continually rising housing costs? And that's just, I think that's the struggle we've got to try and work through. But this isn't perfect. You don't get to design a comp plan and walk away from it and everything was good. And the idea that everybody that voted on the comp plan, I'm sure that all of you, before you read Adapt OKC, read every line of it and thought very thoughtfully about each and everything that was in there. Give me a break. That just irritates me a little bit. These things were arbitrary when they were made. They were made collectively.
That's not true. That's not true. They were not arbitrary when they were made. That is not true.
Janice, the idea that 621 square miles were all specifically negotiated and absolutely thought out individually speaking is ridiculous.
Well, I beg to differ. As somebody who sat through hours and hours and hours of meetings and negotiations with the development community and others, I just think you're absolutely wrong about that.
And I'm glad we're having that discussion, because this is maybe the argument we need to have to get to the bottom of where we all feel on it. And if I'm on the wrong side of that argument, so be it. But I want to at least have it, because we just sort of sat there for a long time without a lot of discussion, and then we wound up, in equal parts on one side of the issue. I just would love to let's just put all the arguments out there and kind of have it out as a group and make a decision about where we land. At least that way we'll know.
I agree. And that's why I think a study session would be a good idea, where we can have that discussion and just argue it all out so that we're at least clear.
Yeah, I'm in favor of that.
So do I. And in fact, I have been encouraging staff to do that for quite a while. I mean, I think maybe this is on me. I think I waited for the new commission members to kind of get their feet under them before tackling this as strongly as I feel like, it should be, and the plan is absolutely intended to be and is designed to be a living, breathing document that changes and grows with the city. But this issue of finding a way to control the cost of city government through planning, through thoughtful, reasonable planning, was very much the driving heart of these portions of the plan. When the plan was adopted, it was brought to city council. The plan is really a function of the planning commission, but it was brought to council and they voted to adopt it. So they may feel like they've done what they need to do and that they shouldn't have to address every little issue with a separate ordinance. But, yes, we absolutely need to talk this out, hash this out. We need staff to give us that professional background and the history of this and how we got here and why.
I am absolutely in favor of that, 100%.
The only thing I'll add, and I apologize for even adding anything, is I think there's an equal argument that because of our lack of housing, we should vote the opposite on these items. But I think that'll be fun to discuss and argue at that study session. I'll look forward to it.
Fair enough. I appreciate it. Well, I'll leave it up if we can, staff. Let's try to look at the calendar and see when we can have that study session. Maybe there's an opportunity for us to have that. Maybe we can do it August 12th before the meeting. Then maybe that would be, if we don't have a study session planned, maybe that would make some sense. But it would be great if we can get that on the calendar. So I'll let staff try to help us guide that from here.
Yeah, good. We'll do that. Sorry I missed out on some of that. My Zoom disconnected me, but I gathered what I think I need to, which is that we want to have a study session to address some specific topics. And if you all have, feel free to send me an email saying, hey, let's have a discussion about X, Y, or Z, and then we'll just kind of add that to the agenda.
Yeah, sounds good. Let us know the date for sure, and then we can solidify exactly what we'll try and cover during that time. And I appreciate everyone's involvement in that. And again, Janice, no, that was not disrespectful to what you did individually. That was directed as
no, I didn't take it that way.
Okay.
No.
Right. I don't know where I left off there, so I'll make sure. Commissioner Highsmith, did you have anything? No. Commissioner Pennington, Anything else from you? Okay. Commissioner LaForge?
No, sir.
Awesome. Next thing after Planning Commission members is Planning Department. Jeff, anything else from you today?
Well, we had the bylaws on here if you all have the stomach for it, but it's been a long meeting, so I'll leave that up to you if you want to. But I will say, if you hadn't had a chance to take a look at it, we sent you all a marked up copy so you can easily see the changes that were made since the last meeting. And if you have any questions as to why, we can talk about it now, or we can do it later. But I think we're getting close to getting those finalized, and just looking for feedback from you all.
Fair enough. I think if we could, let's set in order to formally sort of adopt the new bylaws, we would need to set that on the agenda, or is that just us?
I thought we needed to set that on the agenda, but
yes, you do. You need to set that on the agenda and adopt them formally.
Yeah. Can we do that today? Can we set it on the agenda for June the 10th?
Well, yeah, you can bring it back then.
Okay, let's do that.
And do you want to have a discussion during the meeting about the particulars, or do we want to, how do you guys want to proceed?
Yeah, I think that's fine. We can take any further comment on the current draft at that meeting and solidify any changes, and then just make the motion to adopt them.
Okay, sounds good. That was all I have, unless you have any questions for me.
No, appreciate your engagement on that deal today. I know that's a tough deal, and it's got to be super frustrating for you. I hope that you get the sense from us that it's just as frustrating, maybe for different reasons, but anyway.
No, yeah, I appreciate it. And there's just a lot to consider, and I do look forward to that study session. I think that'll be helpful for everybody. I think we're all on the same page in terms of wanting the best for the community and quality of life and quality of development. And there's a lot to consider, and it's just how much does one thing weigh versus the other?
Yeah. Fair enough.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Could you please confirm what you expect to see on the bylaws in June? Do you expect to see the copy that's in your report today without any changes? I ask because we have a shortened agenda, like we're getting ready to put that next packet out. So could you just confirm what'll be on there?
My takeaway from what we just decided was that the current draft that was distributed in our, I can't remember exactly when the email was sent, or I would rattle that off, but
it should be in your agenda. Is the one in your agenda the one that you'd like to see clean?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and then what we'll do is that just kind of puts all the commissioners on notice that any final comments or adjustments would need to be made by amending it there, and then we can adopt it as amended. Then you can solidify all the red lines, and we're good to go, right? Perfect. Development services.
Nothing.
Thank you, JJ. Municipal Counselor's Office, Susan.
Thing?
Thanks for being with us today. Appreciate that gold star, by the way.
Oh, you're welcome.
Citizens to be heard. Nobody. All right. Other business. If not, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chairman, I move we adjourn.
Second, Claire, second.
Yes,
All those in
please.
favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we're adjourned. I hope everybody has a fantastic, safe, and happy Memorial Day weekend.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you.